see Hal Blanton from Lewis County with us.
I'm here.
Excellent. And last but best, perhaps, do we have Tony Gwynn from Pacific County here?
Yes, I am really here. I am not a cutout.
Excellent. And we have some great staff with us. Our interim executive director, Andrea Heisel, is here along with other staff. Thank you all. I believe our pledge of allegiance today is with Trustee Harrington from Thurston County.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which I stand, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Trustee Harrington. Next on our agenda is the approval of agenda and consent agenda items. Do we have any requests to amend the agenda at all?
Yes, please. Could we add one agenda item just to, I think it can just be a levy lift committee, and then we can have some discussion around the levy efforts, but coming out of the committee. I don't think I saw that on the committee reports.
Okay, so we can add that as 9C, or should we stick that 9A? It's pretty important. Should we put that front and center?
We're gonna do 9C.
9C?
Might end up being a longer conversation. If it does, we can get the first two out of the way.
Fair enough. Great. Any other amendments to the agenda? Awesome. All right. Consent agenda items. Any questions, comments on those? Minutes?
Yes. So two things. One, I was reading through the old minutes, and there's a part where it attributes one of my quotes to saying that we haven't pursued a levy lid lift in a quarter century, which I don't think I misspoke. It's possible I did. You can go back and check the record, but what I remember saying, or what I intended to say there, was, which I guess are two different things, but what I remember saying is that it's been 25 years since we had our max levy rate, because the initiative that capped property tax increases went into effect in 2001. We are in 2026, but we did pursue a levy lid lift in 2009. So I just wanted to clarify the minutes there, so it captures accurate math.
Was that the minutes from the July 22nd
July 22nd
board meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, since that's part of the consent agenda, if you just want to move to strike that from the consent agenda, and I can go back and clarify that and put those minutes on the next board meeting for approval to make sure that I got the quote and attribution right.
Okay. Sounds good. And then only other question that I had, and I think we have to approve this one regardless, but and maybe this isn't the right time to talk about it, but for our payroll approvals, currently it has 3 signatures, one of which is a vacant position that we're not necessarily refilling. Do we need to update who the authorized signatories are on that, so that there's 3 signatories? And if so, and if this is the wrong time to, it's probably the wrong time to discuss that, but I just wanted to flag it before moving forward.
I think that's a good thing to flag. Andrea, any comments on that?
I will just say a short note that we have successfully recruited a finance administrator who has accepted and formally accepted as of today the position. So I expect we'll be putting her name in that place very soon. She'll start September 1st. We'll talk a little bit about it here later on.
Okay.
That is an exciting introduction to a great bit of news. So thank you for that preview. Any other changes to the number 3 item on the agenda? Great. Dustin, do you want to move based
Yeah.
on the changes suggested?
Yeah, so I will motion to approve to modify the consent agenda to remove the July 22nd board meeting minutes for revision.
And add 9C for levy lift discussion to the agenda.
Yeah, and add agenda item 9C for levy committee readout and discussion.
Excellent. Any second?
Second.
Great. Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Right?
Any opposed? Great. Awesome. All right. Thank you for that. So opening board comments. I know I have a few, but I'd love to invite others to go first. Anyone want to start with that? Hal, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that, and it's kind of a report at the same time, but yesterday at our at BOCC meeting, the Board of County Commissioners in Lewis County, first of all, I want to thank the staff for putting together a great PowerPoint presentation and deck of slides that were very helpful. They were also very in-depth. I also want to thank Brian for being able to get through about probably a half hour's worth of stuff in about 10 to 15 minutes. And so it went real well. Thanks to Muriel and Devin for being there and actually reporting with us. I think that goes a great way, a great distance to repairing some of that communication gap that's happened over the years. So I think that's very good. But the most important thing I want to say is that there was one public comment after we finished, and they were very supportive of what we had to say. And afterwards, which is where a lot of good discussions happen in the hallways, we were able to speak, and they told us that before our presentation, they were about 90% sure that the levy would not pass. And with reasons, there was reasons that were given. After he heard what we had to say, he flipped that and is very encouraged and it will. And I have to tell you that we didn't say anything remarkable. What we said was we just put out the facts that are out there. We talked about the process. We told the public, the county commissioners, and everybody else that was listening in, what we're doing, how we're going about doing it, and the response from him was that it was just remarkable to me. And I guess what it says that he had a much clearer perspective after he heard what we had said, what our information was, that went way beyond whatever headlines and everything that are out there. And so my point on this is that all we have to do is clearly tell what we're doing, the process we're doing, the things that we have done, how we're moving forward on things, and people will listen. People will be persuaded. I think this person was, and I think that he speaks for a great deal of other people too. So the point, the comment is that as we're talking about the library, talk about the things that we're doing, and what our plans are, why we're doing these types of things, and very clearly. And I think that it breaks through all of those other perspectives that maybe aren't, that don't have the deepness of facts and everything. So again, thanks for Brian, thanks for the whole crew of putting that together, and thanks to the Board of County Commissioners, Lewis County, for giving us the time to speak. There was a couple questions asked, and all in all, I think it was a very good meeting.
Great. Thank you, Hal. Any of your trustees want to open us up?
I'll just kind of I don't have anything prepared, but Hal, thank you for those comments, because I've actually had a similar experience. As board members, we're not allowed to really go out and campaign and support. So basically, my role has been just answering questions that people have and sending people to the TRL website, which I want to commend all the TRL staff, especially communication staff, for the information that they put on the website. It's fantastic. It's great. It's easy to read, and it really gives you a good understanding of the process and everything. But August being what it is here in Western Washington, there's a lot of festivals, and we tend to go to 3 or 4 a weekend. And I've been stopped a lot, or people have asked questions, or people have talked to me. So it's nothing official. I'm not tabling officially or anything like that. It's just people come up to me and say, hey, I hear that the library is doing a library lid lift. What's that all about? Or you guys already have so much money. Or it just gives you an opportunity to give the facts as they stand. And if somebody doesn't, if there's somebody asks a question that I don't necessarily know the answer off the top of my head, or I've had a couple of brews at the Brew Fest or something, then I'll just go check and tell them to go to the website. And I've had people who come back to me afterwards and said, yeah, I got that. That's great. And I agree, Hal. I've seen a lot of people who come up to you who may not totally be invested in what we're doing to begin with, but once you start talking to them and you start just telling the facts, a lot of things that they didn't know, it really changes their perspective. So just want to say, I feel emboldened and am really pleased with the results I've been hearing.
That's great. Thank you very much. And that website, for everyone curious to go there, is www.trl.org/levy, Levy. A lot of great information there. Any other trustees with opening comments?
I do.
Please.
I want to say I've had a really enjoyable experience being the representative of the board to the hiring committee for the finance person. And the change in attitude has been really a delight to be in the building with everyone. And to, even though our, it seems rocky right now, it was really great to see the quality of candidates that came out and interviewed for this position. And I have to say, I'm really delighted with the selection that we have. And I think she's going to help us be more creative thinkers, and has already gotten the idea about transparency with everyone. So I've been sleeping a little easier with her when she said that she was coming on September 1st.
Fantastic. Thank you for your work on that, Tony, and to the other members of the hiring committee.
It's
Dustin?
okay. I still have sensible shoes.
So I don't want to get ahead of the conversation, but I think it's really useful for us to use these early comments when we can to talk about the work that we are doing around the levy, because I know there's also a lot of community members that are out there doing a lot of really important work, and it's not always visible in different directions who's doing what. We've certainly taken steps to try to improve that communication, but I think these opening comments are really a good way to highlight that we are doing work as a board and around communicating and answering questions around the levy. And I think I've seen a lot of flipped perspectives as well in a short period of time, like with people that I thought might not, just presenting the facts, I guess, that resulted in a flip. So, and so, I just to kind of run with that. Also, Andrea joined me speaking to the Grace Harbor County Commissioners the other week, last Tuesday, and I think that went pretty well. Got some good feedback on it. Didn't get as direct feedback, Hal, as as you described, but overall, I think it went pretty well. And then also, have been uh, um, engaging or planning out engagements with the different friends groups around Grace Harbor, and did attend a community listening session as well. So some good things happening out there. A lot of good information being put out there, and excited to be able to go out and answer questions and cite the point people to the website. This is a total side note that's unrelated to anything, but at the start of my career, I worked with the nonprofit organization that manages the global domain name space. It's called ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. And so, like, a bit of a domain nerd. So I'm always impressed that we, as Timberland Regional Library, snagged up TRL.org before the the domain craze. So it comes in really handy when you can just say go to trl.org/levy. That's like 10 characters if you take the punctuation out. So it's a good place to be. And then lastly, I think we're all and I don't know if anybody else is going to say this, but mourning the loss of our dearest Dolly, who is such a champion for, childhood literacy and such a uniting light in this world. And so the world lost quite a bright light yesterday, but in many ways didn't, because she took a lot of steps to make sure that that legacy lives on in a very selfless way, giving back to her community, but also giving back to kids and families across the nation with the Imagination Library, and that will live on. We just got our most recent book from the Imagination Library last week. Fittingly, it happened to be one about music called The Animal Song, but that's a bright spot every month for millions of kids across the country, and it's just such a loss and an example we should all follow, to just be that light in the world that we want to see. And it's a little bit dimmer today, so if we all increase our light a little bit, hopefully we can share the illumination that's needed in fighting for these causes and bringing people together. So
Wow, very well said. Yes, Dolly, we will always love you. A couple things wanted to say. When we talked to the Board of County Commissioners in Lewis County yesterday, the one piece of feedback we got from the commissioners was about timber revenue and asking for data on the decline in that aspect of our revenue stream. And I know that's something that's been our minds, but that's on our county commissioners as well. I was able to attend listening sessions in Lacey and Centralia this last week, sponsored by the Patron Coalition. Great conversations there. We had about 30 people in Lacey and about 15 in Centralia. We have one more of those coming up in Shelton this Friday that I'm going to be going to in lieu of Mason County not having a trustee at this point. A few things that came up that I just wanted to share. First, a thank you to Rochelle and Kylie and the Patron Coalition for hosting these events and leading the discussion. It was really neat to have people get together. Andrea was there, and as a trustee, it was neat just to kind of have someone lead that discussion. We could bring in our points or answer questions as they were asked, but really it was just people talking. And these meetings that we have we speak, there's public comment spoken to us, but it doesn't allow that collaborative discussion. And I would just love to see us somehow start thinking about, as trustees and as staff, ways that we can have events like this moving forward, maybe once or twice a year in each county, just to sit down for an hour or two and just chat with patrons and community members was very enjoyable. It wasn't always easy. I mean, there were some hard questions and points made as appropriate this year, but I enjoyed that discussion. We had great representation there from our friends groups. That was really cool, and just reminded me, I'm just looking forward to seeing the kind of the regrowth and the healing and the engagement with those local advocates. Just so important right now for the Levy the Lift, but just as people who are sunk deep in their communities, love their libraries, love supporting them. It's neat to kind of reconnect and feel that warmth there. We had some questions come about the lack of a TRL foundation. We discussed why that was disbanded in the past, but that is kind of on people's minds. Sort of kind of related to that, not really, but the people advocating for the levy lid lift created a yes for libraries PAC. And I'm not advocating for anything. This is just information I'm presenting to you folks right now. And that's going to be evergreen going forward to kind of do outreach and advocacy. So separate from TRL, but definitely caring about us. Discussion was made about the library as a community living room, which is a concept a lot of us care about. And also discussion of governance and representation, how to keep rural needs and ideas at the forefront. So good talk. And next one, Shelton, from I think 3 to 5 this Friday. Any and all are invited from anywhere in TRL to come on out. Yeah, that's 3 to 5 at the Shelton Library. This is not sponsored by TRL, but it's an informational session, and that's the role that I'm going to be there, and it's just to answer questions or speak as myself. So that's what I have. And I think we can move on to the next portion of our meeting, which is correspondence.
We have some. We had 22 emails to the board in the time period covering July 23rd through this afternoon, August 26th, and almost all of them had to do with the levy lid lift.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Okay, number 6 on the agenda, public comments, limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have anyone signed up, Chris?
We have 6, and the first one on the list is Natalie Howard.
Before we do that, I'd like to read the RCW 42.30.240, whereas the TRL governing body shall provide an opportunity at or before every regular meeting at which final action is taken for public comment. Public comment required in the section may be taken orally or by providing written testimony. This is an opportunity to provide a statement to the Board of Trustees. Trustees will not engage in back and forth dialogue. Courteous behavior, respect, and professional language is expected of all participants. The disruptive patron policy applies to participant behavior in Board of Trustees meetings in both virtual and physical spaces, and we are grateful to everyone for being here and for speaking up. So, thank you, Chris. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. We got Natalie Howard up first, and then Brent Karen will be next. And here we have it.
Now,
Whenever
can you
you're
hear
ready.
me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. On July 22nd, the TRL Board of Trustees voted to put a levy lid lift on the November ballot. In the 35 days since then, I personally have shown support for TRL by attending 3 Patron Coalition for Local Libraries meetings, attending 3 Olympia Indivisible Committee meetings, attending 2 Friends of the Olympia Library meetings, including one with Andrea and Muriel yesterday, attending 3 Yes for Libraries PAC meetings, and attending 2 public listening sessions in Lewis and Grays Harbor counties. I will also be at the listening session in Shelton on Friday, so Brian, I hope you bring donuts again. In the 35 days since you yourselves have voted to put this measure on the November ballot, what have you done to share information with your community about the levy lid lift? Without active engagement from all members of the TRL Board of Trustees, this ballot measure will not pass in 68 days and 7 hours. The rest of my public comment is quoted from a written public comment that I submitted for the April 22nd TRL Board of Trustees meeting. Based on my research, Trustee Blanton never submitted an application to become a TRL trustee. I submitted public records requests to Lewis County, the Lewis County Board of County Commissioners, and TRL itself for Hal Blanton's application to the TRL Board of Trustees for his appointment in 2013 or his reappointments in 2018 and 2026. None of the mentioned agencies had Trustee Blanton's application from any year. Please correct me if a board application from Trustee Blanton exists, but currently all signs indicate it doesn't. I think it's important that Trustee Blanton belatedly submit and make public a board application for 2 reasons. First, the lack of application implies that there was no formal process for soliciting, vetting, and interviewing candidates. Was this position ever publicized? Did other people submit applications or show interest? And second, Trustee Blanton was originally appointed in 2013 to finish out another trustee's term. When his current term finishes in December 2032, Trustee Blanton will have been on the board for 19 years. TRL patrons have a right to know and understand the perspective and qualifications of a trustee with such a long tenure of influence. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
All right, next up we have Brent Karen, and Kylie McQuarrie will be after Brent.
Good afternoon. My name is Brent Karen. I'm president of AFSCME Local 3758B, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the unionized workers of Timberland Regional Library. Local 3758 library workers urge the Board of Trustees to honor the trust being restored with workers by adding a non-voting labor representative to serve in an advisory capacity. As recommended by Thurston County Commissioner Carolina Mejia, this can be done with a change to Article 2 of the bylaws following the amendment procedure in Article 8. Steps have been taken to rebuild the relationships between workers and administration, the community and the board, administration and the community. We have seen the voices of our friends of the library groups uplifted. We have seen a restructure of the administrative team to include more voices at the table, but we still need to build a solid relationship between the board and the workers. A non-voting labor representative will ensure transparent and open communication between workers and the board. We have seen the unfortunate results of an admin culture that chose to work from the top down only, excluding the concerns and expertise of the people actually doing the work. The board would do well to renounce that culture and its disastrous results, and seek wide representation and knowledge in its deliberations. Local 3758 library workers continue to advocate for safe working conditions, fair labor practices, and a meaningful voice in decision-making, and a strong, financially transparent, well-funded public library system for all. We are committed to working together so we can continue to provide vital services to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brent.
All right, we got Kylie McQuarrie up next and Jim Lazar after Kylie.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, I'm on a library laptop because mine had a protein shake spilled all over it by a cat this morning, because you can check out laptops from the library in case you did not know. But I don't know about the sound. Okay, here we go. First of all, I'd like to thank the board again for voting to advance the levy lift in this November's election. Second, I'd like to echo Natalie's comments and emphasize exactly how essential it is that the public see not just the administrative team's commitment to change, but the board's commitment to change as well. Back in March, after Ms. Haywood's resignation, Trustee Loop commented during a board meeting that he knew the board had a lot of work to do to restore community trust. This levy lift offers board members the perfect opportunity to rebuild the trust that was eroded during the past library administration and that has continued in some cases to continue to erode after Cheryl's tenure. At every single listening session I've attended, people have commented that even though they're seeing Andrea's administration make some essential and much longed for changes, they don't necessarily feel they've seen the same from the trustees. And as a result, members of many communities continue to worry that promises of change won't be kept once the levy lift passes. This is especially true of many friends of the library groups, especially those that spent years fighting for their branches only to have their concerns dismissed. In many cases, these friends emailed the Board of Trustees about their concerns, including upsetting situations about trees being torn down, books removed, or murals covered up. Many of them never heard back, and when they've brought up their concerns more recently and in person, many of them have walked away from conversations feeling angrier than they did before. They feel dismissed, unheard, ignored, and talked down to, though, as one attendee at a listening session pointed out, people's anger stems from a place of deep, deep hurt. I know there's a great deal of optimism about the campaign that I also share, but the levy's success still depends on the quality of the campaign itself, as well as the public's perspective on how hard the trustees are working to restore public trust. I think they've seen a lot of that with people showing up to the listening sessions and reaching out to talk, but I do want to emphasize that part of prioritizing the levy lift means continuing to do the hard work of restoring public trust, making changes like amending the bylaws to include a non-voting union representative, continuing to reach out to staff, listening to concerns from friends, community members, and staff members with empathy and compassion, and without attempting to explain or dismiss, will go a long way towards making this levy lift effort a success. I would also like to ask you to please consult with the legal team within the next week or so to make sure you understand exactly how much you can or can't participate in an informational levy lift campaign. I believe you can probably do quite a bit more than you know, and we could use all the help we can get in making this levy lift a success. Thank you so much for everything you've already done, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes next. Thank you.
Thank you, Kylie.
All right, Jim Lazar. Hope I'm pronouncing that correct. You are up next, and then Megan Hall.
All right, my name's Jim Lazar. I live in Olympia. This is my first time appearing before this board in the half century I've lived in Olympia. In the past year, I've had cause to use libraries in Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, Packwood, and Amanda Park. I'm here to urge the TRL board to direct staff to prepare a fact sheet about the levy lid lift to be mailed to every voter in the district in early to mid-October. That is before the vote on the levy. I submitted detailed written comments and only hit a few high points orally. First and foremost, the 1% cap imposed by the legislature after Initiative 747 was determined to be unconstitutional does not keep up with inflation. Something that cost $1 in 2022 when the law took effect costs $1.87 today at the average inflation rate. Yes, there is also an adjustment for new construction, but new construction also comes with new population and new library demand. The bottom line is that TRL is working with about 30% less purchasing power than it had a quarter century ago. The levy lid lift would make up about half of this shortfall, not all of it. The public needs to know the facts. The TRL staff has produced good information that's on the levy lid lift portion of the website, but that really needs to be mailed to every voter. Most voters will not go to the website. I served as a Thurston Public Utility District Commissioner in 2012 when a voter initiative put a measure on our ballot. The PUD produced a detailed fact sheet and mailed it to every voter. We actually printed it on newsprint to save money, and we used the Every Door Delivery mailing service, which is the cheapest form of postage. I urge the TRL board to do the same. Direct the staff to prepare a fact sheet, and then at your next meeting next month, approve the funding to print and mail it. The voters need to hear the facts directly from our library system. Thank you for your service, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jim.
I got Megan Hall up now, and then John Kistner.
Hi, good evening, Board of Trustees. My name is Megan Hall. I live in Olympia. I wanted to address the levy lid lift in my comments. To the board, as a Yes for Libraries volunteer, I want to see your commitment to helping the levy pass as private individuals in your own time with the Yes for Libraries campaign. I would like to see any communication at all with the campaign or with the friends groups. I would like to see your individual efforts to donate and fundraise, and as private citizens supporting the levy by reaching out to the PAC and wanting to work with us. Not as a board using library resources, but as private citizens in your free time showing up to help our campaign. This is not just business as usual. We have 68 days until the election that will determine whether the library system will have to make drastic cuts and lay off workers. What else can you be doing, and how are you connecting with the public who wants to save our library system? Are you coming with us in your free time on the weekends when we knock on doors, as we set up tables at events, as we send texts to voters? I am in Olympia. So for Mary Beth Harrington, all of your county commissioners have endorsed the campaign and are responding to our invites. Washington Administrative Code 390-05271 is about your constitutional right as an individual to express personal political views, volunteer, or support a ballot proposition, as long as public facilities are not used. The Washington State PDC explicitly states that local elected officials are free to support agency ballot issues and engage in other political activities, as long as such activities do not make use of government facilities, time, or resources. I urge you to seek expert advice and to participate as private individuals to show that you believe in libraries. As a resident of Olympia, I want to know how you are fulfilling your duties as a library advocate in the campaign. You need to be taking visible public actions and steps, and doing that as soon as possible. My comment I'm going to make personally In my opinion, the board has demonstrated that they need to learn to be active in the last year. All of the board failed to ask adequate questions about the budget for 2026 last year during its discussion and approval process, and has also failed to correct the lack of a levy lid lift in the last 15 years. That makes me doubt the board knows what their role is here now as individual library advocates in your communities. You didn't act then as a board, so I do not know to trust you that you are going to act now. You need to collaborate with the community efforts going on by communicating with us proactively on a daily and weekly basis in September and October. I don't know that you all know to do this because we don't hear anything from you except at these meetings. We need your individual personal help in your free time on this campaign. I am working on the campaign every day for 2 to 3 hours in addition to my full-time job. I don't get the laurels or the glory of being on the board of trustees that you all do, but the
That's
campaign
time.
to pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan.
All right, John Kistner, you are up.
Microphone check.
We hear you.
Fantastic. Hi, Board of Trustees. My name is John Kistner, and I'm a library patron and a homeowner in Olympia. While I applaud the trustees' efforts around the Levy Lid Cap campaign, I echo sentiments heard earlier that there has just not been enough going on. I would urge trustee members to commit to helping as individuals with the Yes for Libraries campaign, including responding to emails and reaching out to the Political Action Committee, actively participating in fundraising and attending, and helping out at campaign events. I would like to hear trustees actively speaking as individuals to the respective counties' community groups about the levy and supporting libraries. Can Board of Trustees leadership confirm whether you will send a factual mailing before the election based on best practices? Thurston County Trustee Mary Beth Harrington, all of your county commissioners, again, to repeat this, have endorsed the campaign and are responding to the Yes for Library campaign's invites. As a resident of Olympia, I would like to know what specifically you have been doing and will do in your duties as a trustee and as an individual around this campaign. We strongly encourage you to work with the Political Action Committee, and you need to be engaging in outreach and campaign support as much as possible, as soon as possible. This comment is dedicated to Dolly Parton, who knew how to successfully advocate, inspire, and support literacy and reading in all their forms. Dare I suggest the trustees follow her model? Yes, I dare. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, John.
And that is everyone I have signed up.
Okay, great. Thank you all to the public for being here. Okay, so our next agenda item is TRL updates from our interim executive director. Andrea, take it away.
Okay, good evening, board, and good evening, public. Just a few highlights to share with you for this month. We obviously, as you know, are working on our budget process for 2027, kind of in tandem with a service plan for what it looks like if a levy passes and what it looks like if it does not. We're creating two separate budgets for that purpose. So we're all in the middle of finalizing those budgets to be collated, put together, reviewed, and then had to the board in November, I believe. So that work is going on. And I also want to point out, as we already mentioned, we have our informational campaign at trl.org/levy. We're adding new information, feels like almost weekly. So please keep a lookout on there for more information. And we have, you'll hear in the facilities update here later that the Aberdeen remodel project is moving right along with our Friends of the Library and the Library Board for Aberdeen and the great stewardship of Stephanie Reese, our regional manager for for Grays Harbor there. And we have, as you have also heard, successfully hired our new finance administrator. I don't know that she could join us tonight, but I do want to let you know a little bit about her background. Her name's Mariah Holmes. She graduated with a bachelor's in mathematics from Indiana University East, and she comes to us with more than 10 years of experience leading budgeting, forecasting, financial governance, operational strategy, and organizational transformation initiatives. She's also partnered with executive leaders, governing boards, and cross-functional teams to develop sustainable financial strategies, improve operational performance, and strengthen organizational accountability. She starts with us on September 1st. I also want to let folks know that, much to our chagrin, that Helena Farrell, our finance coordinator, will be leaving us for evergreen pastures and returning back to her former employee with a really excellent job opportunity. She will be on contract with us throughout the end of this year just to help us get through with our new finance administrator and onboarded. But I really want to shout out Helena's amazing work in the last 6 months. It's been a lot, and she has really stepped up to the challenge and done such a wonderful job presenting clear information to the board and to administration. We also have our all-staff training day on September 16th. This day was already in the books before a lot of the financial things happened this year, and we had reservations that we did not want to lose money on. I want to point out that this is all funded through gift funds that are undesignated from the service center. But we are really excited to use this day for lots of good staff training, for a levy informational campaign training, for a Q&A with 2 of our trustees, and a time for us all to come together as a district and do some more of that good rebuilding of trust and time together for training as well. And then finally, we are at the end of our summer library program this year. And as we have not reached the end of August, at the time of this report, we had 14,653 patrons signed up for summer library program. That's just for June and July. And at that point, we were only 415 signups shy of what we were last year. I think that is incredible. It speaks to the testament of how amazing our staff is, that even through this very tumultuous time, we have a very high number of signups. And then we're looking at completion rates of 2,699 again through just the end of July. So that number will go up when I do the final report next month. So thank you to our staff for doing that incredible work. We really appreciate all you're doing to help forward that literacy and keep everybody reading. Are there any questions from the board?
I guess I'll just make a statement that I'm really pleased and excited that we have our new finance leader coming on board. This is a key position and someone who really wants to come to TRL despite a challenging environment, who sees that and who is excited to contribute to the rebuilding, to the what was the term used, organizational leadership and transformation. And we've worked hard this year to improve our financial forecasting. That was clearly something that needed some improvements. And we'll hear some of that from Helena in a few moments, but we've made great progress on that, or at least a very good start. And I'm just so pleased that we have someone coming in who's going to take that baton and continue running forward with it. The work is by no means finished, but well begun is half done, as they say. So thank you for your work on that to everybody. Any other board comments or questions? Okay.
Just adding on, it's awesome to see the turnout for the summer reading program, summer library program, right? Like the signups and completions through 2 months in Grace Harbor exceeded both of those numbers for the entirety of last summer, just in 2 months of recording. So like I imagine it's, as Andrea pointed out, similar across the board, but it was fun to look at those numbers and see things ratcheting up already, and excited to see where ultimately things land. But I think it's just a really good reminder too of what we're fighting for, and what we hope comes out of the collective efforts of everybody over the coming months.
Great. All right. I think we have number 8 on our agenda, financial statements and highlights from Helena. before she
Yes.
leaves for ever greener
Oh.
pastures?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. As you've just heard in Andrea's comments, this will be the final time I present TRL's financials to you. Beginning next week, you'll have a new finance administrator with considerable experience who will continue to improve TRL's fiscal transparency and work to build a sustainable financial future. Tonight, however, I'd like to summarize our financial position in July. In your board packet, please reference the file titled July 2026 Financials. Members of the public who are in the audience can find the report on the AV Capture All page for this meeting or by visiting trl.org/budget and navigating to the Financial Reports drop-down menu under the Budget Documents header. As we had projected, this month saw a larger general fund net deficit than any month except for January. You can see this reflected on the balance sheet on page 1 of the report. This is expected. July and August have historically seen very low tax revenues while expenditures remain roughly the same. However, I also want to direct you to the expenses line of the general fund balance sheet and note that we recorded just $2.13 million in expenditures in July, the lowest monthly total of the year. We can credit cuts made to several expense categories for this decrease. On page 2, we see that planned spending cuts to books and collection materials remained steady month over month. Even more notably, salaries and wages decreased by $115,000 between June and July. This reduction happened due to intentional measures. Furloughs to administrative and coordinating staff, voluntary layoffs, attrition, and administrative salary reductions are all factors here. Additionally, fewer new voluntary layoffs this month meant less spending on severance payouts, something that has inflated the salary line item in other months. I won't opine anymore on the expenditures section of page 2, but I will encourage everyone to take a look at this month's line item totals and compare them to the July 2025 column on the far right of the table. By July of last year, we had spent $17.39 million out of the general fund, compared to this year's $15.97 million, a $1.42 million difference. Moving on, I also want to look at page 6 of the report, the general fund year-to-date graphs. I somewhat ominously warned about this in last month's meeting, but on this page, you'll see that our annual expenditures have now surpassed our revenues. Again, this is expected, although I'm sure it's not something anybody likes to see. The good news is that this deficit remains very small at just $29,000 year-to-date. We will run up a larger deficit in August and September before receiving our next big tax infusion at the end of October, but I'll get into that some more in a moment. On page 7, there's another illustration of how much our property tax receivables deflate during these summer months. Property taxes contracted significantly, going down from 66% of total receivables in June to just 33% in July. We can expect roughly the same ratio again in August. We also see on this page that we're continuing to violate the 30% threshold policy at greater intervals each month. Despite our relative effectiveness in decreasing spending, these long periods where monthly revenues slow to a trickle have compounding effects month over month that are difficult to come back from without adequate annual revenues. So while we will continue to make conscious spending decisions, each month that tax receivables are low chips more away from our overall balance. If you turn to page 8 of the report, I have news that's a little more optimistic. Although we saw a huge decrease in tax revenues and will continue to see that until October, we're also now projecting a better beginning balance scenario for October than we have in previous reports. This is again due to reduced spending. Previously, we had projected that we'd go into October with a balance as low as $500,000. Now we're projecting a balance of $1.1 million. However, as you can see in the projection graph, we're going to continue eating away at the high balance we built up in April and May's big tax infusions. We're projecting a $4.1 million beginning balance in January 2027. On the last page of your financial report, we have some more interesting analysis of our personnel costs. You can see on this page that total personnel cost is down year over year by about $180,000, with a total number of FTE down to 181.3 from 217.73. You might remember that in previous month's reports, while our number of FTE was down year over year, the average cost per FTE was much higher. You can see this month that we're closing that gap with July 2026 at $8,617 per FTE, when July 2025 was at $8,001 per FTE. This is an improvement over, for example, May 2026's numbers, which had us at $9,439 per FTE in comparison to the previous year's $8,138 per FTE. Again, this is mostly related to voluntary layoffs. We had a lot of them in May and fewer in July, meaning fewer severance payouts to inflate the average per FTE. Now we're seeing a more realistic comparative numbers to project forward in the long term for personnel. And that is what I have to share with you today. Does the board have any questions about July's numbers?
We might. I'll start out real quick. First, by thanking you for your time here. You have stepped up wonderfully over the last few months as we've called upon you to not only take over the finance job, but also to create a whole new set of reports, more or less from scratch. And these are very, very helpful. Thank you for doing that. It was a huge lift, and I'm thankful, and you've done a good job. My question is on unemployment. I think, if I understand correctly, don't have complete control over our unemployment costs. It somewhat depends on how quickly our former staff find work. And if
That's correct.
So how are we doing on that relative to what we expected, and as good as it can, or I guess as bad as it could be, the maximal extent of what we would have to pay versus what we are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think a good way to look at this, because we can't really project unemployment costs forward all that much or with much accuracy, is if you're on page 2 of the finance report looking at the unemployment compensation fund table at the very bottom, you can see how much money we have transferred into the fund per the board's agreement for interfund transfers this year, comparable or relative to how much we're paying out in unemployment. And for July, we had a YTD balance of transfers in of $258,000. So that's all the money we've transferred in there. And then YTD in terms of our expenditures, we've spent $114.9 thousand. So ultimately, we do have a net excess on that fund currently, with another transfer coming. Our next quarterly transfer would be in September. So I would say that if current trends continue, we will be able to continue operating the unemployment fund at either a balance of 0 or a net excess, or somewhere close to a 0 balance, given the current activity that we're seeing.
So that looks good, relatively.
Relatively.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the board?
I have more of a comment than a question, but Helena, I want to publicly thank you for stepping into the fray, getting the budget and the figures in check, and making them presentable so that they were in pieces that we could digest and understand easily. And as you go off into the future, when things get stressful, just remember this time and remember what a pivotal person you've been. Stand on your shoulders, strap your cape on, and go forward, because you really are a good woman. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tony. You've been such an encouraging and friendly presence, and I really do appreciate your feedback.
I can't follow that, but I also just want to thank you as well. It's been a pleasure to work with you as you've helped us get together these reports and help us better understand things, and helping just stabilize things at a time when that was much needed. So thank you.
Thank you, Dustin. It's appreciated.
And I'll commend to the public, trl.org/budget, where you can see all of the very helpful and interesting graphics and data that Helena just referenced. Okay, our next agenda item, if there are no more questions, is committee reports. A is Facilities Committee. Trustees Blanton, Loop, and Gwynn. We've got several items, so I'll throw it over to the Facilities Committee.
This would be a good time to plug that, while not directly related to the Facilities Committee, it would be lovely if things continue to move forward in a positive direction with our two groups of county commissioners that have vacant seats on the board, so that we can meet as a full Facilities Committee before the next Facilities Committee meeting. Let's hope.
It sounds like progress is being made. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and going forward.
Yep, I know there were some interviews earlier this week at the Mesa County Board of Commissioners. So fingers crossed. With that being said, Hal kindly recused himself from the meeting so that we didn't have to post it as a special meeting or violate OPMA. And so with that, I was going to give it over to Tony to take the first two. I know we typically go back and forth, but I was definitely listening during that meeting, but I was also chasing a pretty angry toddler around for the first like 30 minutes of that meeting. So instead of our normal alternating, I'm going to ask you to take the first two.
You're going to have to clue me on which the first two were, because I have a 17-pound cat on my piece of paper.
Service center lease renewal and South Bend.
Yeah, I got it. I'm with this. So as some of you know, we are on Port of Olympia land and building, and we have been in that land and on that land and in that building since 1976. And this is a time when our lease is coming up for renewal again, and we're also going up for a levy lid lift. So we had a long discussion in Facilities Committee with the Port of Olympia and what was going to happen and where we are and what the future looked like. And I am delighted to say that the Port of Olympia is really willing to work with us. And so as long as we have a commitment that says, we're interested, they're interested in working and with us in the future to get this together. So Andrea, that was the 350-degree look at it. What are the small points that I have missed?
So what Mike Reed from the port offered was to go back to his board and see if they would be approve just an extension through the end of December for us. So that would give us some breathing room and time to decide what would the next lease look like. When they initially reached out to us, they gave us one option for a 15-year renewal. So I said, can we have a conversation? And so that's what precipitated Mike coming to our meeting and talking through a couple of scenarios. So we've talked about shorter term leases, and we've talked about what he thought would be able to go forward with his port commissioners, because each of these things have a process. They come to our Facilities Committee for discussion. They they have to go to their port commissioner committees to go through their discussion. So we have to always line these out very carefully in order to get the renewals in time. So appreciate their willingness to think creatively and work with us, and have been a real supportive partner, and really echoed that in our Facilities Committee meeting. So that was great.
And we have also been a good renter from them.
Yeah, we've been pretty solid for 50 plus years. Almost 50 years. Yeah.
So I guess, are there questions? Hal has a question.
Yeah, are they offering, what's the increase of the lease going to be per year? Or what's the total number, not the increase?
Yeah, I mean, well, the increase I believe is 10%. So, gosh, these are good questions, Hal. I want to say we pay around $7,600 a month for the lease. And so it would be 10% of that added on for their lease renewal.
Thank you.
And I always kind of whine because I think the building is really big for us. But in the last time that Andrea and I were together, she has some ideas of things that we could do in those spaces that could potentially be revenue increasing. So we have a lot of conversations to have around this yet. The friends groups, Andrea, I'm with you. Okay, is there anything else on those? Stand by as we go forward with leasing of the building and the property. Then the next one must be South Bend. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. See, sometimes I know things. We had a lovely conversation at the facilities meeting about the times and the work that is being done at trying to figure out what it is actually going to cost to get the building back into occupiable shape. And then I'm going to turn it over to Andrea to talk about the insurance lack of that we're dealing with. But I also want to remind people that one of the really strong South Bend Friends of the Libraries and past librarian Diantha, whose last name I never remember, passed away last Saturday. And there's a campaign for funding to support the library that has gone out by her family. And I think it was very timely because the last email that she shared with many of us on the board was a very strongly worded letter of get our butts in gear and get out there and get that levy passed so that we can have 2 libraries in this part of the county. So it was sad, but it was done in true Diantha style. So we're here in South Bend still celebrating the love of libraries of people. So Andrea, what am I missing here?
So I believe what we talked about at the facilities committee was just, I was doing a little more research into what does the remediation of the items inside that library look like? What might it cost? And Mayor Bethany, who is here with us today still, has shown up on the East Coast time as well. Is a part, she has reached out. They have received some quotes for that remediation work. I think we're still waiting to hear, we need to get back together and talk about what are the plans for reopening as part of that thing. So Mayor, do you have any updates that you would like to share with us at this point?
No, I just wanted to make sure that we upheld our obligation of having this information to the board by this meeting, so you guys could make a decision if you would support us moving forward with funding grant opportunities and different stuff like that with the letter of commitment. We talked about it in Ocean Park. So just wanted to make sure that I circled back and came to the meeting, even though I'm on the East Coast right now.
Okay. So I received this email this afternoon, so I'll forward this to the board and then we'll need to take that back for further discussion. Yeah. Oops. Thank you for attending.
And yes, thank you, Tony, for acknowledging Diantha Weilup.
That's her last name.
She has came to every single city council meeting since I've taken office in January and been supporting and asking about the South Bend Library. So I would be remiss if I was not here advocating for the South Bend Library on her behalf.
She would haunt you.
So it sounds like the next step is, Andrew, you'll forward that email and then we'll discuss the letter of support, I guess, letter of intent. right?
Yeah, we just need a commitment that you guys will be reopening it if we get it all of the work done. We have the scope of work and everything that needs to be done.
So to clarify, does this mean this is work that the Friends are moving forward with, that would like to move forward with to get the building reopened?
It's what the city and everything would, with the Friends and everything. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And it's the work that we talked about, the remediation and lead stuff, all of that.
And in terms of that commitment or letter, if we put that on next month's agenda, does that give you what you need, or like timeline wise? Just trying to understand where this needs to be at in your timeline. I guess what I would say is the library is still a branch in the system. It's just not operational due to the condition of the building. And I've stated on the record, and others have as well, that we have no desire to close libraries. So I mean, I'd be inclined, if we got it to an operational state, recognizing there might be limitations depending on where things land for how frequently it is open and staffed, just given staffing realities. But I maybe let me know if I'm thinking about this the wrong way, but if we it's almost like, to me, that it's assumed that if we got it back up to a place, we would reopen the building, and we would have to make a decision to the or to the contrary, in fact, if we weren't going to, right? Because it's still a branch. So and only the board can close a branch, and by choosing not to reoperationalize it when it got fixed, then we would be effectively making a decision to close a branch. So that's how I'm thinking about it. Interested in others' thoughts, but also want to understand the timeline.
That's the slide I was on. I know we have not said anything about closing that branch. And I do, if I think I'm thinking correctly, the staff that was in the South Bend Library has just been kind of allocated to other libraries at this time.
Mm-hmm. To Raymond.
Oh, I see heads bouncing. That's great.
And they're still programming in South Bend occasionally, right?
They've been holding it in the park and with the Anywhere Library catching up with it.
So if I could ask some basic questions. So this is a city-owned building.
Correct.
And it is an original Carnegie library. And it is in need of work that you folks want to do, but you want to hear from us our commitment that we would reopen it when and if, or as you guys repair it and get it in that state when it can be habitable again.
Yes. The one grant, the Commerce grant, requires that. In that you all have a match for, help me, Andrea, 158?
I want to say it's 150,000 that was committed back in 2022, if I'm remembering correctly, when they went out for this grant and it was awarded, but it's contingent upon that building being open and being able to be a library space.
Yeah.
Right. And I really think the new financial person needs to be involved in this discussion.
That sounds good. And Dustin, I think your analysis sounds right to me.
So maybe to say where things are at right now. Obviously we haven't heard from everybody, so please, Mary Beth, Hal, chime in if you disagree on the front of whether or not we would reoperationalize. I'm going to use that term instead of reopen because that assumes it's closed. And then there's also the separate discussion item of the continuing to honor the $150 match because obviously finances were different at that point.
Yeah, we've had, I mean, the reason it was closed wasn't because we wanted to close. It was a safety issue, health and safety. I'm assuming that our thought process really is the same, is that if we get up to those standards, I don't know why we wouldn't reopen. Or what was your term, Dustin?
Reoperationalize.
Reoperational. Thank you. I don't know why we wouldn't. I mean, that's, it's first things first on that. And I don't see, we haven't pulled any support or anything, so that it's a process, as you guys well know, of getting through this. So, I would think that we're still obligated, contractually with what we've done in the past, and we'll continue to do so.
So it sounds like we're on track to have a further discussion with some more prep at our September meeting, and that timeline works for folks.
Yeah, I think, Andrea, we have a commerce meeting in September, and I can't remember the date, and I can't access my calendar right this second. Apologies for being limited.
Let me see if I can see that real quick.
We meet on the 23rd.
Okay.
Next month. That's our scheduled regular business meeting.
And would you like me to be at that meeting? Would that be beneficial?
Mm-hmm. And that is in a way meeting. So
it's a hybrid away.
It's a hybrid meeting, but yeah, but it's also, Bethany, we could talk about carpooling if you wanted to go to it.
Okay. Since I can't drive, that is.
Yeah, I understand. I can't run. I totally get it.
Okay. Any further discussion on South Bend?
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you being here. You get the award for farthest flung, I think. Thank you. All right, Dustin, back to you.
All right.
Favorite topic. You love all libraries the same, but Aberdeen, you just kind of
same but differently, right? But play no favorites. But the Aberdeen Library is obviously my home library here, living in Aberdeen. But things are moving forward with the Aberdeen refresh. For those that have not heard this, I feel it's obligatory to say it at every single time we talk about it, that this remodel is not being funded by Timberland Regional Library. It is using existing funds from various sources, through the Grace Harbor Community Foundation, primarily the Shirk Fund, but there are other pools of money available as well. And so I know that obviously the budget is top of mind for us. And I know that there has been some confusion around that. So I do feel it is important to highlight that. There is a useful, on the Aberdeen Timberland Library Facebook page. You can probably find it elsewhere as well. there's a good breakdown of the funding sources and what they're going towards. So what's coming from TRL, staffing, collections, computers, and small improvements that aren't funded by fund endowments, and then the Shirk Fund from the city of Aberdeen, the Friends of the Aberdeen Library, and other endowment funds are being sought to make all of the improvements. Lighting, flooring, paint, HVAC, elevator. It'll take a little bit of the sense of adventure out of using the elevator, but a good update. And then roofs, windows, doors, all that good stuff. And there are some really cool plans being laid out and discussed around improving the spaces, making more use of the space, laying it out in a way that's really conducive to the different audiences and groups that the library serves. They've currently held the 2 of 3 listening sessions that the local and regional staff have been facilitating, and have been doing a great job. And the next one will be on September 26th. This will involve I don't recall exactly how long, but will require a pretty significant period of time for the Aberdeen Library to be closed. So during that time, anticipate patrons going to the Oakham Library or probably the Montesano Library, depending on where they're at. And then I'm going to put Stephanie on the spot here to fill in the gaps. Maybe would love to hear, you and Shanna and Sarah and the team have done a great job with the listening sessions. So I'd love to give you some time to shine here.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, awesome. Yes, Dustin, you did a great job. Thank you for coming to the last community listening session. Those have been really fun. They are recorded. The first one is up on the website, that trl.org/Aberdeen site. And then we'll get the second one up that just happened last Saturday. We'll get that recording up as soon as we can. So I think just to add, October 1st is our closure date for Aberdeen. It's here. It's almost here, and that's crazy. The updates for this remodel happen hourly, sometimes daily, but the highlights are that we are having lots of meetings with our partners. October 1st is the closure date, and we're working on signage to get that notice out to the public. I'm working on emails out to the community so that we can get as many people notified as possible, both our patrons and our partners, and also preparing Hoquiam for the move-in of our team and our patrons. And let's see, we have heard it's going to be more like a 6-month to 7-month closure. We have heard that elevator parts are a long time out. We're still really trying to meet that 7-month, which would be a hopeful May 1st, 2027 reopening. But I'm going to say, I really want to stress that is tentative. So if you see it changing to summer 2027, don't be alarmed. We're still hoping for May 1st, but we'll know more in September about the lead on the elevator parts that would push us out. We've been working really hard with the Amoresco partners and the city of Aberdeen to try to be functional in May and have different contingency plans should that elevator not come in on time. So got a great team, got a great folks to work with the city. And then we are working very closely with our Friends of Aberdeen Library and the Library Advisory Board to move together on this as far as what the inside looks like, what furnishings and finishes and fixtures look like for the next 20 plus years. What does our community need? And that's what the listening sessions are for. So we are moving ahead just inch by inch, but October's going to be here before we know it. So I have met with Timberland's project team leads. So, the head of IT and facilities, and we talk frequently about how to best coordinate Timberland's service center, administrative center help with this. And it sounds like we're going to have a lot of good people on the ground packing up and storing, hopefully in a nearby location, some things that we're going to bring back after the remodel when we open. And just stay tuned because we're going to have a great grand old reopening. We've got a committee to plan that reopening, so we want it to be a month-long celebration. Okay, if I missed anything, please let me know. I'm here to answer more questions.
I think Tony wanted to hear about the discussions about the bathroom because it did come up at the listening sessions.
Okay. Yeah, discussions about the bathroom are, essentially it's a safety and function renovation in the bathroom. So we are working with the plumbers to, talk about larger pipes so that, necessary things can go there, necessary places better. We're talking about a full, I don't know exactly what it looks like because we're not there yet, but some kind of packaging of the fixtures in there that is cleanable. So I know that the architect has a really good plan for that. I haven't seen exactly what it is, but I've seen some options for some just cleanable surfaces in the bathroom. And then the measures that we have taken over the last year or two have also helped with the kind of safety and any bathroom issues that we've been having. So we're going to carry that information into what we design for the after the remodel. So so cleanable and safe is our goal there. Did that answer your question, Ms. Tony?
Thank you, Stephanie. I simply was asking Dustin about this because early in my tenure here, we spent a lot of time talking about bathrooms, and the Aberdeen bathroom was always on the list, and about how hard they were to clean. So how many hours we were paying people to clean, and all of the functions of how they were not working around it being a easy to clean, easy to use, accessible, safe bathroom.
Yes.
In fact, I've never learned so much about bathrooms except for on this committee. So thanks for being proactive on that.
If I could say one more thing, I would say it's a group effort. The city of Aberdeen and what they are doing for the downtown corridor has also helped with some behavior issues that come into the library. So we have done gradually different pilot things of how to make sure those bathrooms are more safe. And we are very, very close to getting there. So I think this remodel is going to help get us to a really great, safe bathroom. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions or anything to add on Aberdeen remodel? If not, we can move on to one that is a bit of a fresh and new topic for us, the world of EV charging. So we received a proposal, it must have been maybe 3 weeks ago now, to consider being a host site for, I guess, externally managed and installed EV chargers, level 2 or 3, at the North Mason Library. I believe the request was for 8 parking spots. And from the discussion at the facilities committee meeting, it sounds like there is ample parking at North Mason, and that there wasn't a particular concern about the impact that would have on parking availability. The There's not any that I know of, or that we were able to find. Level 2 or 3 EV charging in Belfair, and there's quite a bit of traffic that runs from Shelton or further up through onto the kind of corridor along the sound there. So it would include, I think, a 10% revenue share. So kind of an interesting creative way to potentially bring in a little bit of revenue. I don't know if we have estimates of what that would actually look like. I think they would retain the right, obviously, to set the rates. I believe would be independently metered, and yeah, what else am I missing? Obviously, we're committing to a certain period of time. Andrea, what else was included in that proposal that we should highlight here?
There were a few questions the facilities committee had that Chris got answered from the representative. So they did confirm that there is no DCFC infrastructure existing in Belfair, and that this grant that they're a part of to put this infrastructure in is funding has to remain in Belfair. So that is why they are looking for a partner on this project. And the revenue share, because you brought that up, they are estimating between $300 and $500 within the first year. And of course, with it increasing as people become more aware of it and hopefully more EVs are purchased. And there was a question about the type of charging. And Chris, I'm going to lean on you for that part because I think you had more of a conversation around which type of charging stations could be at, or am I just making this up?
Oh, I mean, they did mention that they were initially proposing eight parking spaces, so 8 fast charging, so level 3 chargers. And there's an option if we wanted to have one of those as a level 2 charger, which is slower, essentially. And they had proposed the eight spaces that were kind of facing the highway. And a regional manager at North Mason, Annie, asked if they could potentially locate them on the northernmost end of the parking lot, so adjacent to where they were initially proposing. And in their answers, they said that that was something they're open to. Depends on installing the infrastructure and what's possible, but that they're amenable to that. So they included that in the proposal. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else that I'm forgetting that they updated. Brian had asked about this, whether the 10% revenue share is typical, and they provided some information about different ways that has been done. What else did they say? Estimates. Yeah, I think that's it. I will clarify too that the $300 to $500 was a per month estimate. So that's what they're expecting in the first year. So
Okay, that makes sense, because I was gonna be like, is that a revenue sharing or profit sharing? Because that's pretty low if you look at revenue, but
it's
that's
a modest revenue stream. That's how they phrased it.
I have a quick question. Don't we already have EV stations at Salcom?
We do.
Yeah, so this is a different company, organization.
I believe so.
Has the Salcom company approached us about other locations? Since we already have a relationship with them?
Not that I know of. And this company specifically reached out because they have this WashDOT grant and
right.
Need, yeah, it's in Mason County. So
okay.
Have we encountered any difficulties with those Salcom chargers? And do we anticipate this would have any needs for additional insurance or costs on our end? I don't know that people are going to get zapped by electric chargers, probably not, but more people coming into and out of our parking lot at different hours. Belfair is a pretty safe community, but I don't know if there's any increased risk that our property would face.
It's a great question. We will need to consult with our insurance company on that one. I don't know offhand if we had any special insurance for those added to Sockham when that was installed.
If it helps, what they're looking for right now is basically a letter of intent on our part to work with them on finalizing the actual agreement before any installation would happen of any of the equipment or anything. So they were looking for an expression of intent to proceed basically before or very shortly after Labor Day. So that's where the timing brought it to facilities and then to this meeting. But if there are no objections, the next steps would be to then take the actual site host agreement, which they have shared a draft of, that has all of the legal language around damage to the equipment and who pays for that and other kind of the kind of questions that you're asking would go to our legal for review, and there would be some back and forth, but before the board then approved us to move forward with the actual site host agreement that would precede any actual construction. So at this stage, it's just a question of, do we want to express intent to move forward?
Yeah, my take on that would be, this seems like it generally fits with the library's purpose of being a place of shared resources. And I like supporting that. I just want to think through as best I can any risks that would come to the organization from it. I like that there's a revenue stream. It's fairly modest. I mean, it sounds like $3,600 to $6,000 a year is not nothing, but that's fairly small if there's any real risk that comes to us from it. But as long as we don't anticipate that it's going to cost us more than that or open up any sort of can of worms, I like the idea of providing an extra resource for locals and people passing by. And maybe they come inside, maybe we put up a little sign saying, hey, for how much does it cost to get a day pass to the library? Do we even sell that? Can we have a little, you can join TRL as a visiting?
Nothing.
Okay, come on in, enjoy the library, the water's fine. Yeah.
It is worth noting too, we have a very big library district. You cannot get from one end to the other without charging, and Belfair happens to be an EAH, or North Mason happens to be an EAH building, right? So for patrons of the system, could be a nice spot of respite while replenishing the charge in vehicles for those that have them.
Just to be correct, North Mason is not an EAH building.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
No.
And then again,
Pittsburgh is in Mason County.
Got it. Okay.
And I trust our lawyers. Our legal team has been very good, so I'm happy to support this going forward into that process where it gets reviewed, and we be excited about it, because I can see the day when we have anywhere library vans that can plug in there while they service the library and then move on.
Yeah, the question about the insurance will be easy to get an answer to, so I should be able to get that tomorrow.
Thanks.
What's the agreement in Salcombe? Is there a revenue share there, or?
This is the point where I wish Helena was still on the call, and I'm pretty sure she had to leave us because I have not seen that myself, so I will get that answer to you. Salcombe.
Oh, are we looking to get the letter of intent out of this meeting then?
Tony just said she would interested in moving forward, and it wouldn't require a motion. It just generally agreement to move forward with the letter of intent, I believe. leave.
Yeah, I'd support moving forward.
Okay. Probably cleaner if we make a motion to just provide a letter of intent. Unless
I
you,
make a,
do you
I make a
disagree?
motion. No, I will make,
Uh-oh, you got muted there, Tony.
am I still muted?
Nope, you're good.
Good. I make a motion to provide a letter of intent for the project as we move forward with legal review.
Is that kind of what you need, Andrea and Chris?
Mhm.
Probably needs to be seconded though.
Can I second
I'll
it?
second.
I don't second anything anymore.
Oh, yeah,
Didn't this
go
come
ahead.
with a motion from the facilities?
I don't think so. I think it just came out for a discussion. We wanted to
It
talk
just
with it
came
about.
out. We just had a big old conversation about it. We didn't bring it with a motion.
Go ahead, Brian. You can have your second rights.
All right. Well, so it's been moved and seconded. And all in favor of the motion as presented? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. That's great. Okay, anything else, Dustin?
No, that would bring us to the end of facilities committee updates.
Okay. Great. Okay, next agenda item, executive committee. And I can kick that off. This is a committee of the current, immediate past, and president-elect. So this was Trustee Harrington and Loop and myself. We met to look.
Trustee Gwynn, not me.
I'm so sorry. What did
You said me.
yes, I apologize. Yes, it was Trustee Gwynn. Thank you so much. I apologize. So we met to discuss an executive search firm to look for our regular executive director. We're currently being served ably by our interim director, Andrea Heisel, and we put out an RFP for search committee. And we had, I believe, 10 firms that we responded to and that we as trustees evaluated. We interviewed or heard from 3 of our top firms. And I'd love to open it up to my colleagues to discuss this, but I thought all 3 made really good presentations. And I honestly think that we'd be well served by any of the finalists that we heard from. They all had experience both with executive searches and with library searches. 2 of them were from the Midwest. One was from based here in Washington State. And after some discussion, which was a public meeting and there's video of that, we came to a consensus on GMP Consulting, which is the only firm based in Washington State. We heard from the principal of that firm and several of the other staff, including the lead who would be working for us. He's lived here. I think he lived in Aberdeen for a while. And he knows our community and the 5-county district, which that was important to me. They have a lot of executive search experience, and they went into some detail on that. The only thing that gave me a little bit of pause is they didn't have a lot of library experience. They had some, and but overall, I thought that they would be the best for it. And that was kind of the consensus we reached. So love to hear from the other members of that committee if you want to weigh in on what you saw.
Yeah, I think again the interviews and the subsequent discussion that we had is on the record, and the reporting and transcripts are available. I agree. All 3 that we interviewed, I mean, they were the top 3 for a reason. And I think we would have been well served by any of them. There's, I guess, something about Ohio that brings out good library placement firms, because 2 of the top 3 finalists were based in Ohio.
Strong library state.
Yeah. And in addition, we in evaluating all of those that we received, the cost was one of the key criteria in identifying the top three. So we didn't necessarily all three scored well enough on the pricing that they made the top three. And so in the discussion, we just talked about what they brought to the table and how well they would serve us. But GMP, when I looked back at my scores, actually did have the best score for the pricing. And I think we should, I think it's important that we do identify how much this is anticipated to cost us if we're going to make a decision to proceed, because you can put RFPs out and then withdraw them. We are not under an obligation to select a firm. I'm in agreement that with our recommendation that we should select this firm, but I do think the cost is important, especially given where we're at. So that their fee for conducting this search is kind of the base rate of $23,500, and then there would be the costs incurred in placing the posting on different job boards, and if we choose to go the route of direct mail announcements, which they've done in the past, to vetted candidates, not just random mail announcements, and then of course like travel costs and things like that, which presumably will be cheaper for them to travel from within state than from Ohio. Anticipate travel costs would have been included as an incurred cost and a reimbursed cost from all of the firms. So not only did they score the best and seem to interview the best with us, they also came in at the best price among the top three. And when I looked back at the pricing, they actually scored the best in the pricing across the board for at least the way I was vetting that. And then when we discussed it, I think we had different top threes, but GMP made it in all of our top threes. So I think we had different like number twos, but GMP was kind of in all of our top threes and kind of made the decision easy for us, or the decision to make a recommendation.
Tony, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I was surprised at how little some of the firms knew about us. For as much information as there is out on the internet about us, I was expecting all the firms to be much more engaged. So when GMT talked about LBAM, I went, okay, these people at least understand us, because we are very unique with the 5 counties. And one of the firms we were looking at truly, when we asked about large library systems, could just talk about one community type library system. So I felt really comfortable about this with this group. And also the fact that every Monday they have a meeting where they talk to everybody who is in their headhunting firms throughout the United States. So even though they're a Northwest firm or have ties in the area, they at least have a national presence. And this is going to be an arduous task. This is not something that's going to happen in 30 days. This is going to be a slog. So I'm also aware that there's a lot of organizations that are out looking for executives. So we are not alone, which means that we've already had firms that sent us bids that pulled out because they were just too busy. So I would like to see us, even though we, don't know what the future holds, but I would like to see us assign a contract and get going with this, because this is going to be like waiting for Christmas when you're 5 years old.
Questions or comments from other trustees?
Thanks for doing this. I would like to in the future see the proposals. I think if you were expecting me to make a decision or a motion to approve something, I'm going by your word, and that's great. I like you guys. respect you guys, but I would like to see the proposal myself before I could make a decision about this. Also, I'm wondering if they're an in-house firm, if they're actually, all the communications with the candidates are going to be conducted by them, and that our HR staff is not going to be burdened with all that back and forth and communications and setting up scheduling and things like that. Are they a complete resource?
Yes.
Okay, so they're they're doing all of the legwork and all the communications with the candidates, including letting candidates know when they haven't made the list or all that. Okay, because that's a huge group. A lot of search firms do more of the going out and searching for the people, but then when it comes to the actual interview process, they will hone that off on the HR department of the organization. And that's, for the amount of money you're paying, that wouldn't be what I would expect. And also, what kind of conditions are set if we go through the process and we have the initial search and we have candidates and we start the interview process, and as sometimes happens, as I've said before, we don't pick a candidate, like nobody, and we have to start the process over again. Is there payment, like, is it one lump sum, or is it a monthly retainer, or is it does it go on, continue? If we go into this and we're 6 months or 9 months in and we still haven't identified something, and we have to start from scratch again?
Their guarantee and warranty is that if a candidate's not chosen, they'll repeat the recruitment for an additional $950 administrative fee plus expenses.
For how long will they do that? They would just keep infinitum, just keep adding that $950 to it for every month. Is that by month, or is that for
that was for as I read it, that's for an additional recruitment cycle.
Okay.
So Mary Beth, when we asked this group about this, I believe the answer was that they've never had anyone go more than 2 cycles.
Okay.
Yeah.
They haven't worked in libraries, they said. I mean, that's great. That's great. That would be very hopeful. Yeah. Okay. Those are the initial concerns or questions I have. I'm sure somebody else has more questions.
So we could.
And just so you mentioned the 950 administrative fee. I think the other thing is if we do select somebody and they leave within the first 18 months, they'll kind of like at just the cost of expenses conduct, and I guess they don't include the $950 administrative fee in that one for some reason. But yeah, did want to throw that out as well. So it's not just if we don't select somebody, as if we select somebody and within first year and a half it doesn't work out.
Which the tenure for most executive directors is 18 months. I know it's not always, but that's just like an average.
Any further questions or discussion? Mary Beth, I want to know how we can provide information to you as we move forward with this process. What would you like to see, or what route would you like us to proceed with? I definitely want to make sure you have the information in front of you. So,
well, I didn't realize this. I didn't know about this meeting and didn't know that. I mean, Tony had kind of told me that you guys were doing this and moving forward and stuff like that. But I would just like to see the proposal, because if you're asking me to sign off on something, I'd like to. I mean, when you're asking me to spend money, I like to read the black and white, personally.
absolutely. I can forward you the GMP proposal. Would you like to see any of the others?
No, that's fine. I mean, I get it. I get you guys. I understand the process that you guys went through, and I'm not condemning you or saying bad things you didn't. It's just, if I'm going to sign off on spending money, contracting with somebody, I want to read so at least I can say, hey, I read it and I didn't think about that, or I didn't see that, or whatever.
Well, I agree. I'll forward it to you. And I thought, I guess I didn't look too closely at the CCs. I thought that all of the trustees had seen all of the proposals. So I would love for you to see it. So I will forward this to you and Hal. Any other, so it sounds like that is a good point for us to discuss, and then come back next month to discuss this further and vote.
Well, you can still vote. I might abstain or vote no, or I might vote in favor. But I mean, you just need a majority vote. It doesn't have to be a unanimous decision. It gives me the ability to, you know, say I told you so or something. I don't know.
Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot going on. Oversight for us to not share the proposal of the recommended firm in advance of the meeting. So apologies for that. I will note that if we don't proceed with the motion tonight, it puts us pretty substantially beyond the anticipated announcement date, which, if we feel is necessary, is okay to do. I don't think it would impact their willingness to work with us, but it is a risk. I'm not sure if we have Savannah on tonight, but I know we're working with Savannah during the process. And so did just want to call that out, that there is a risk of delaying this as we deliberate on whether or not to move forward with the recommendation and the motion tonight.
Right. And I'm saying you can move forward with a vote.
Oh, yeah.
Majority, you don't, if the three of you vote for it, then Hal and I don't really have that. I mean, let Hal speak for himself, but I just would like to see a document before I sign off on the money.
I agree with that, and I have the same philosophy on things, Mary Beth. And I guess my take on it, and I brought this up a little bit in the meeting, is with so much going on that requires our full attention and work, and with the timeline, which is about 3 months for hiring, more or less, we would be doing the interviews and the hiring right around the time that this levy lid lift is going to the voters. And our future over the next 6 months to 2 years plus, it really rides on what happens with this election. And whoever we hire is either going to be making modest but meaningful new investments in an ever better TRL system, or is going to be a change manager for some serious cuts to everything. And that's probably not the same person who's going to do the top-notch job for either one of those outcomes. Maybe it's one person could do either one well, but it seems like by mid-November, we'll have a better sense of exactly who we need to carry us forward for the next at least 18 months. And we could start that process now of having the meetings and the scoping, but it doesn't seem wise to me to be interviewing people in October, which this timeline might put us at. So the point being, I don't think a delay is really going to set us back much, because we should probably not go super fast on this anyway.
Can I just add to that? The other component of this is that this RFP was designed very intentionally to prioritize community input on the front end and the tail end. So during the process of actually setting up the planning process, developing the job description, and having dedicated sessions of the finalists with the community, we heard from a handful of people at the beginning of this meeting during public comment, all of the effort that people are putting into the levy lid lift campaign, and also, you know, spreading awareness about it. And I think a lot of those people are the people that we would want involved on both ends of this process. So adding in an additional ask of them during the the remaining days that we have are is something ideally I'd like to avoid. I think the ideal candidate for us will love us in good times and in bad. So so you know, I'd be okay in some ways with having the interview process occur in the midst of this, but I wouldn't be okay with adding uh, additional burden on the community during a time where they're already spread thin, not to mention us, right? Hiring processes are not, they're very time consuming to do it right. And it's one of the biggest decisions that we'll make as a board. So I also don't want this to compete with that effort. There's legwork that can be done in the meantime. So I agree that putting the selection off by a month doesn't, I think, have a hugely negative impact on the outcome that we're trying to achieve. And, you know, we're blessed to have really solid interim leadership that doesn't put us in that position to have to rush this. But I just want to call out, like anything, and I'm sure anyone who works on public contracts know that RFP announcement dates shift often in the direction of added time to a decision. So this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that works with public sector clients. And if it does, you know, frankly, they might not be the right fit. But I just did want to call out that part of what we prioritized too was their ability to start immediately upon selection. And just want to call that out. I'm not. I want to hear from everybody. I'm not going to necessarily push forward on a decision tonight, unless others think it's a good idea too. But like anything, I'd like us to be unanimous on this.
Well, I think that the right candidate, like you said, Dustin, will love us in good times and bad. So a good executive director will be able to deal with the situation, positive, levy, lid lift, or negative, or whatever. My real concern, though, is that another concern, I guess, is that if we're moving forward on this and you're starting to have interviews prior to the levy lid lift, there's a possibility that you will have candidates that will bow out as a result once they hear what the levy. So you might have a lead candidate that you really like and think is great, and then November 4th comes and they say, we're going to take another job, or I'm going to go someplace else, because they don't want to deal with the fallout if the levy lid lift doesn't pass, or God forbid, kind of thing. So that's another concern I had, because when I did the timeline, I would see you doing a lot of conducting interviews in October, and it also, like you said, it's going to confuse. It could potentially, especially if you're doing an open public. I mean, most of the time you don't do an open public interview, but some of what you guys are saying sounds like you're kind of thinking like a listening tour or something like that. And that can confuse the public. Like, am I coming to a meeting about the executive director, or am I coming to a meeting about the levy lid lift, or, you know, something like that. So anyway, I have obviously a lot of things floating in my head about this. So I would.
I'm sorry, Ray.
No, go for it. I'm not going to talk anymore.
I wonder if GMP would be interested and willing, if we would want them to come and talk to all of us at our meeting next month, just meet them, and we could say, you're kind of our lead candidate, and not that you have to sell us, but what would it look like if you started, in October, let's say, if we were to decide in September to hire them, and to start that listening tour sort of in conjunction with the last part of the levy lid lift, and then be hiring without knowing at that time what the outcome is going to be, but knowing there will be an outcome by the time they're really doing the recruitment. That it would be interesting to hear a little bit more of a tailored proposal once they know, boy, okay, yeah, they're looking at us, and here's kind of the timeline. Now that we know that it's happening as the levy lid lift is finalizing.
I don't know if I want to put them through another gauntlet just for the sake of it. Just in the day job, right? I've been on the other end of this too, and so understand the, it's not not cheap for them to have, like, they've already committed, they've prepared the proposals. We didn't include in the process that we would be interviewing them, and they did step up, and so to continue to add interviews isn't necessarily something I'd like to do. I would like to give Mary Beth and Hal the opportunity to look at the proposal, maybe draft up questions, and maybe they could get us, if there are any, and maybe we get a response in advance of the next meeting, and be prepared to make a decision at the next meeting. But if there's also a majority of folks that think we should move forward tonight, I'm not opposed to that. But I'd feel better about this if we're all on the same page and have had a chance to review everything. I see Tony's hand.
So, Andrea, I have a question for you. I see through the notes that Thurston County has put someone forward to fill their position that is vacant on the board. Do you believe that that person will be here by next month?
I would love that. That would be really optimistic, I believe, because, I don't know. The Thurston County manager told me they had moved the application forward to the other counties. So I have not checked or tracked, and I don't know if Chris has had a time to check or track where it is in all that process. I think we typically expect it to take 2 months once it gets moved forward to the counties, just because of the timing of their meetings and approval time. So,
well, it would be nice, since I'm going to be an optimist here, that the two people who are being put forward to fill those 2 vacant spots, they will be involved in this search as much as we are. And it would be great if they could have the opportunity to weigh in on this if they are only 4 weeks away.
I agree. I think the reality is probably 2 to 3 months. Since I don't think Mason has finalized their person, and it's sounded like, at least in the past, Thurston and Mason were sort of waiting to approve until they got approval. So my guess is those would both move forward in tandem. Although I haven't heard that said. So, but I agree with you, Tony. I think it would be ideal if a full slate of trustees were involved in making this decision. That seems healthiest.
And in the selecting of this firm, or
no, in the selecting of the executive
okay.
director.
Okay. I agree with that. I just wanted to clarify, because I think this is an important decision to select the firm, but also, don't want to drag it on indefinitely.
I'd like to see us discuss it and hopefully vote in the September meeting after the 5 of us have had a chance to review that. So that's how I'd like to move forward if everyone's okay with that.
There's no motion on the floor, is there?
No.
Okay.
Sound good? Sweet. All right. Cool. Mary Beth, thank you for bringing that up. And I glad to have you look at that because your experience with this is extensive and wide ranging. So I look forward to your feedback on that and your thoughts, and the questions you asked tonight have been great. Okay, now we get to move to 9C, the new edition of the agenda. Everyone's favorite subject for the next 68 days and 5 hours, the levy lid lift.
Yeah, so just wanted to take this time. I know we talked a little bit earlier about what we've been up to. I don't think we need to rehash that. We do have a shared calendar of events that Chris has spun up where we can indicate where we plan to attend. That helps us avoid quorum. It also helps us make sure we're not missing something that someone should be at. There was a pretty extensive engagement opportunities calendar that was shared with us as well from the Patron Coalition that I think we can use to fill that tracker out a bit more with opportunities. There were, and so I think we can have a discussion on some of the engagement pieces, but there are two things that and how these have all come up in recent discussions. So you and I haven't had a chance to discuss this as a committee. So first right of input on this one. But two things have come up, and we heard some of it. I think all of it actually in the public comments. The first is getting concrete guidance on where the guardrails are for us as a board in our board capacity, and then obviously like personal capacity. So I think it makes sense for us as a committee at least to connect with at a minimum every library and potentially get some legal counsel guidance on what our engagement looks like. And so before we move forward with that as a committee, also wanted to get input from the rest of the board, whether you would want to be a part of a meeting with every library, which would require us posting it as a special meeting, which don't want to go through those hoops if we wouldn't be able to make it work. But should we set that up as a presentation with the full board? I know we have a workshop coming up. I also know we have some housekeeping later, so I don't know if that's still set or what. But yeah, looking for everybody's input on that. Do you want to be a part of a discussion, or would you prefer that Hal and I go collect information and share it out?
When and what would that look like?
So every library is just an organization that provides free pro bono consulting to library stakeholders and leadership around a variety of things, but one thing specifically is around political campaigns and understanding how to navigate them, what's acceptable and what's not. I know some of our friends groups have already met with them. I think our staff has already met with them, and I think some of the PAC team have also met with them. So I think we're overdue in meeting with them, but wanted to they'd just basically be providing us guidance and some pro bono clarity on what we should do, what we shouldn't do, what we can do, what we can't do in the context of our engagement around the levy.
My thought on that, Dustin, is that it needs to be done fairly quickly. I would kind of opt for you and I be able to do that and disseminate it quickly. because there's just sometimes that we can't all get together. I mean, that's just, and particularly if we set up a meeting and, well, there's just a lot to that. So I wouldn't be opposed to just sitting with you. I also wouldn't be opposed going the other way, but I just think for quickness, two could work a little bit quicker than maybe getting all five together.
I was just gonna say, I've worked with them in the past. One thing I would suggest that you do is when you are visiting with them, and this seems like it might be obvious, but it's a point of differentiating in terms of what you can do and cannot do. As board members, we're volunteers. So as I've been told before, so staff, for instance, so they cannot do obviously any campaigning while they are on the property of TRL and working and things like that, so anything that they can do would be on their quote off time. But as volunteers, we technically do not have off time. We are board members 24/7. So there has been some litigation, not in library terms, but in other terms about this and about volunteers' abilities and to advocate and other boards and things like that. So just clarify, I would check and just clarify that hasn't changed in the past few years.
Okay. Definitely ask about that. Thank you.
Yeah. It's just a weird
in this litigious society, I would not want to jeopardize anything because I said, great idea. So I read all the clarifications and I've been doing some things, but I would kind of like some bumpers. So, and the sooner the better, because I'm trying to line things up.
Yeah, I would say the sooner you two can meet with them, the better. It doesn't need to be a meeting of the full board. With that said, if it's something that could be recorded on AV Capture All for us to review later, I wouldn't mind that. They might be nervous about that. If they have any, heartache about it, that's fine. No need to. But if it's something we can review later, I totally trust you guys to ask the right questions, and then I can watch it twice so that I get it.
Yeah, and asking the right questions. I like that, Brian. Send us a couple questions because we would ask those.
I love what Meredith just said.
Yeah, and I like the idea of being able to do it on camera. So that's helpful.
If you could send your questions to Chris, and then Chris can provide us with a compiled list of questions, just so we don't inadvertently create a meeting.
And let's try to limit these questions to the topic and not just random questions that we think are fun.
If you were a color, what color would you be?
May pass over that one if I see it in the list, but okay. Thanks for the direction on that. Hal and I will get moving on that, and we will ask them about their comfortability with recording it so that y'all can watch it, and in addition to reading the bullet points. The other items so the one that Jim brought up a few things, but one was the mailer. We've talked about at the beginning of the meeting how we've seen people digest the factual information and at least change their tone, if not their thinking. And so definitely seeing the fruits of that labor that TRL staff has put into pulling all of that together, and everybody that's been out there spreading the word, both staff, admin, and the public as well. So what do y'all think about the idea of getting a mailer out there? If it is in Jim's email, kind of there was an estimated cost of 50 to 75K. That would be, I think, probably mailed to all registered voters.
I like the idea, but I would really like the new finance person to be on board for this conversation.
Also, let me share something I shared with some other people, some thoughts about this. And I hate that we're on recording, so hopefully this isn't going to come back to bite me, but this is coming from my experience working with bond elections and working with political candidates elections. So this is not a presidential election, and this is not a governor's election. As I'm sure you guys are all aware, those tend to bring out more voters. This is the library is one of the biggest issues that you'll see on the ballot, in addition to, I think, the Lewis County representative election. That's going to be huge. That's going to draw a lot of people. Now, you may say, well, that sounds like a low voter turnout. Well, that actually works in our favor, because when people come to vote and they're voting at the top of the ballot, they're not voting at down the ballot, which the library would be considered a down the ballot thing. They tend to vote against property increases, tax increases, just arbitrarily. It doesn't matter what it is, they're just going to vote against it because they want to see their property taxes increase. So a low voter turnout is, in my experience, is maybe to our benefit. That sounds very anti-democratic. I apologize for that. I want you to vote. I would encourage people to vote, but that's kind of the way things are. The other thing is that, and the other thing is that I do not think, well, there's approximately 2,000 to 3,000 people out there who've been talking to us and been following us and been watching our meetings and keeping up with us, and just, they know what's going on. And there's a percentage of who will vote for us, and there's a percentage of that group that will never vote for us. I think that group can change. I think we've already talked about it. Hal mentioned it. I mentioned it. People we're already talking to, once they hear the facts and the figures, they come around. They change their mind and become in favor of this. That being said, the biggest challenge we have are the non-library users, the people out there in the communities who don't come into the library. And we know that there's, we know we have 80,000 people out of 550,000. We have 80,000 who have library cards. So presumably there's a large percentage of people that are not coming to libraries. That's the group. And of that, there's a couple of groups that I really think we should target. I think we really need to target the business community, economic development councils, chambers of commerce, and people like that, and to sell the story of how the economic benefit of the library. We know that we have that information from the Washington State Library that says the percentage of, this much dollars into library equals this much economic development. And I think we need to have a presentation that sells them on that and tells them about the services. Most of them are not going to know a lot of the services that we provide. A lot of people in business community could be really utilizing our databases. They could be using the printing. They could be utilizing a lot of things that we offer that they don't even know we have. So I think we need to do a sell job for them. The other group that I think we need to target is we need to target senior citizens, because senior citizens do vote, and they usually vote against property tax increases. And so we need a presentation that explains to them that this is not going to, hopefully increase the property taxes, or, explain what some of the parameters that are in that, if you are on a fixed income, how this will not impact you. kind of thing. I'm talking passionately. I'm not talking very professionally, but that's kind of another group that I think we need to target because they do vote and they could be in favor of this. And then also the unions. AFSCME is obviously one group we always talk to, but the teacher unions. If you got every single teacher to vote in favor of the levy, the library, then it could almost pass just with the teachers. And teachers vote based on what their union says. And so getting their union to be involved in that. Those are kind of areas. And because I looked on the list of the events that are coming up, and a lot of them are at libraries. Some of them are special events and out there in the community. I think that's great. But I think that because we have 68 days, I think we need a more strategic, targeted approach. And I would like to see us and others working more with those groups that I think we can turn their, convince them to support us. Hopefully I didn't, tell me if I said anything I shouldn't have said, but anyway, that's kind of my 25 cents. And I'll shut up again.
No, that's great. A lot of good detailed stuff there. Dustin, you want to? Think you're in the midst, and that was good feedback on what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't want to take. I want to give other people space to weigh in as well.
And the question is about putting out a direct mailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of other things in there that are worth like discussing, but the question in front of us is about what we think about a direct mailer.
Right, and I'm saying you're spending $50,000 to get people to vote who may or may not be able to.
It is a
change
midterm, so it's not a special election, so the turnout will be a little higher. We do have quite a few Supreme Court justices up this year, which could drive some voter turnout.
I haven't been able to see what other potential bond levy lid lifts are out. I heard that there's one other, but nobody's been able to confirm with me what that is.
There's also another big race for the 3rd congressional district. So that's going to drive a lot of turnout, at least in the
That's
3rd.
the one I was talking about. Yeah, in Lewis County, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's good. Right. That's probably one of the bigger elections. I mean, you're right. The Supreme Court candidates definitely. I mean, there's things that people will gravitate to and want to vote for, but I'm just saying that the big things we don't have this year.
Could we, Andrea and other staff, could members of the public who want to support this project, independent of whatever they do with the PAC, could people donate to TRL, to a gift fund, and that money be used to send an informational flyer on the levy? It's not used to promote a ballot measure, it's used to provide information. Mary Beth's shaking her head.
It would go to the PAC. You donate to the PAC.
To advocate in favor, so that they would want to invest their money in the PAC because it's a more direct vote yes, rather than a neutral informational thing. I guess it's asking if we could use one-time funds to pay for this sort of outreach, and if patrons or people who want to support that, could they donate and offset some of that cost if they wanted to?
I mean, we can do a one-time informational direct mail, which is what Jim was suggesting. I will say Annalisa is looking into the cost of what that might look like for us, so we actually have a firm cost. So, and by we, I mean Timberland can spend our own money to do a one-time direct mail of informational levy things. That being said, depending on how much it is, that money is also going to be needed for the 3 times during 2027 where, we're going to be dipping into the managerial funds potentially to pay our bills. So again, it's that, Tony's not wrong in wanting someone else to just make sure we're keeping our eye on the what's going in and out, with our different, executive director search, and if we get the workplace assessment and the financial assessment situations going forward, and we need to pay for those as well. So just there's a bunch of things out there to consider. And we're going to do the legwork to figure out at least what the cost looks like for sure to get that to you guys.
Yeah, cost would be helpful. It would also be helpful to understand like what how long it takes from a decision to get these out. I mean, it wouldn't, I don't think probably also understanding like when they're most effective, right? Like sending it out now might leave people's minds before election day. So it'd also be helpful to understand, from people who know these things, like what's the most effective proximity to an election for these to hit mailboxes. So it sounds like we can let's put this as an agenda item on the next meeting. We can get better estimate of costs. We'll have the finance person in place, and welcome, we can do some research as well, but welcome anyone with experience to weigh in on when the most effective time for it to hit mailboxes is. But I think moving forward with evaluating the costs, I think we already have a lot of the materials and everything prepared in some fashion. There's probably some reformatting needed to structure it as a mailer, but I think that could get turned around pretty quickly if we gave an affirmative at the next meeting. Is that a fair characterization, Andrea?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Everybody good with that direction?
Yeah.
Cool. The other thing that Jim included in his email, which is probably something to bring up with every library, just to kind of understand, or whoever we talk with, did indicate that if we hold a public hearing as a board, allowing supporters and opponents opportunity to speak, there is an RCW that allows us as a board to endorse the ballot measure. I guess probably maybe similar to how other elected bodies endorse measures like this, but I do not know enough about that to vet that. But curious, want to hear thoughts from other board members on the concept.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to ask every library about that. Get some professional feedback on that, and tailored toward Washington state law as well.
Of course, yeah. And if they said yes, we fully agree with this interpretation, and maybe just for good measure had some legal counsel vetted as well, because this would be a pretty big misstep if this was not allowed. So if it is confirmed to be allowed, would everyone be open to having that public hearing and then considering, I guess, an endorsement by the board? I would be, if that's helpful to kick it off.
It's kind of theoretical to me right now.
Okay. So we can get more clarity and add it as an agenda item if it's allowable, and we can discuss it at the next board meeting.
That'd be good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I think that brings us to the end of the clarity we needed from the board. How we will circle up here in the next day or so and get moving and get the clarity that that we need on some of these great good ideas that have been put forward to consider. So anything else, Hal or Andrea or Chris or anybody that's participating in the committee that you want to provide updates on?
Just that we will add the libraries, us holding levy information sessions throughout the 5 counties will be added to that levy website and in BiblioCommons, and there will be like a drop-in style session that I'm hosting. So just we'll keep everybody informed when that's ready to go. It's in the middle of being planned right now, so we got a bunch of stuff lined out. So
Great. So you're thinking one for each county or multiple?
we're looking at, making sure we're not just hitting like the big libraries in each county, but some of the rural libraries as well. So just trying to think through places where we haven't been more recently and making sure we're holding some sessions there. So we're definitely hitting all 5. We're looking at like regionally, so we're hitting, more than just one branch per region in a lot of cases. So
yeah, let me know when you're coming my way, or I'm trying, maybe all of us can, but I'm trying to kind of fill in for Mason as well, since they don't have a representative. So do what I can to be there.
Well, the spreadsheet that Chris developed is really good, and there's a lot of blank spaces on there. And I know I've already said that I was going to do some of the Shelton too. So, I mean, some of the Mason ones. And so what I'm doing is I'm sending Chris, and just heads up, I'm going to be sending you a list of all the things that I've already obligated to, because there's my name's not on some of those. And so, if we could all just do that and keep looking at that list, and I'm sure it'll be updated and continued things will be added to it, that will be really good in being able to see how much or where the holes are, where we haven't covered as a board, not as TRL, but just as board members. Okay.
Is that the one called Levy Outreach Opportunities?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it goes till October 31st.
Okay, yep, got it. Thank you.
And I think that if we hear about opportunities, like for tabling, or that we're going to be at or something like that. I mean, I didn't send in the times because I wasn't doing it just as a board member. I was just doing it, just talking as a person who knows about the library. So those were not official functions, but I think if it's an official function, we should make sure Chris has it. This is going to be really important later on for us to be able to do our debrief and to figure out what areas we may have missed and what we didn't cover, and how saturated the community saturation, how much our percentage of saturation.
Great. Okay. Anything else, Dustin, on that?
Nope, all good.
Great. Okay, that brings us to 10 new business. Item A is customer service survey report. Looks like we have a presentation from Stephanie Reese of West Grays Harbor. We heard from you before on remodeling the library. Now we get to hear about the humans inside and what a great job they're doing talking to our patrons.
Yeah, thank you. My first question is, do you have a preference if I share my screen for a presentation, or just you guys have the presentation in your board packet? Is that
If you can share the screen, let's do it for the benefit of AV Capstrell and our
sure?
attendees.
Chris is probably giving me that permission here as we speak.
And in our agenda,
One
this is
thing-
Board of Trustees customer service presentation.
And one thing, I know you probably will say this, Stephanie, and I apologize, but the thing that's really screamed out at me, and I want to make sure, because I really spent several hours digesting this, is that when you look at the graphics, you'll see like this many said very dissatisfied or this many said dissatisfied. But when you start reading the comments from those people, sometimes the comments do not reflect somebody who was very dissatisfied.
Yes.
So when you see the numbers, I just want to tell I'm sure you guys already saw this too, but when you see the number, you see the number of dissatisfied or very dissatisfied, it's not always, I think, an accurate number. And maybe you could say the same for the very satisfied too. I don't know, but at least based on the comments. So that's my 10 cents.
I love that take because that's absolutely what happened. And let me try. So it's been a little bit since I've shared on, oh, here we go. There it is. I found it. Okay. Share. Let's just make sure you can all see that. Okay. To present. And can everyone see that? Screen share. Okay. Awesome. So yes, thank you, Mary Beth. I think I would love to hear from you all about what your takeaways were. So, I will go ahead and just say that since it's a little bit later, and I'll make this pretty brief. I have a pretty brief presentation, but I thought it would be fun to do a quick review of the survey since it's been out for a few months now. And you've all had a chance to look at it and kind of, like Mary Beth said, browse through it and have some takeaways. What I'd like to do is talk about the survey just a little bit, but then also share what we've learned from the survey, how we're using that information to inform customer service internally and both to the public, so staff to the public and staff to each other as colleagues. And then also just share a few pieces of our project outcomes, which are very internally visual right now. So I wanted to share that we did look at the survey and do a lot with it, but it's kind of internal right now. So it's not external where the public can see. So this is a chance to let the public in on, and you all as board members, in on some things that we've been doing for customer service. So just a quick update. As you remember, the survey took place in January through February, or no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. January through March 2026, January 16th through March 16th. The report itself is available on our website, trl.org, but also I have a little QR code. If you'd like to scan it, that'll take you directly to the report itself. And I
Code's not
see
working for me. You might want to double check that. It looks
it's not
good.
scanning. Okay, sorry about that. We could drop a link in. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, let's see. So it's on our website. And you can, the data is also nicely prepared on this board packet for you all too, and have a chance to parse it out and look at it. One thing to note is that this was our first systematic district-wide look at in-person customer service. So we were only focusing on frontline and in-person customer service. We received more than 1,500 responses over our 5-county service area. And since the report was published in May, now we've had a couple of months to move from those findings to actionable items. So here are the goals that we had hoped that the survey would help us with understanding or achieving. We wanted to grab a measurable baseline for patron satisfaction. We'd never done a survey before of customer service. You see them everywhere. You see them on, you get hounded at every service point that you have in your lives, do a survey, do a smiley face, do a quick 2 minutes or less, or 20 seconds, so we thought we'd join that group of folks and hopefully make it easy for people to respond. And so we did do pretty well. We were focused on staff service behaviors so that we could learn what is working well and what we might need to improve, or if there's any gaps that we aren't thinking of. We wanted to create a data set that would guide our training, coaching, and recognition. Andrea felt that it was important that we hear from the public, and I did some staff interviews throughout the project as well to say, what's going well, what areas do you need some training or some coaching on, and how could we better recognize you all as staff for the great work that you do. So we also wanted to recreate positive experiences. If patrons told us what those were, then let's keep adding and keep moving them across the district. So I'll go on here and say this is how we conducted the survey. As you recall from the report, we got the word out to our patrons. Self-checkout was the most popular way to access the survey. And we did learn that we have some work to do on reaching our Spanish-speaking populations because we do want to know more about how to better serve these communities. And we only got, I think it was about 8 responses in well, maybe more than that. Sorry, it's been a little bit since I looked at those numbers. So we did some good promotion. And if we do a survey again, we can add to it. Oh, sorry, let's go this way. What we heard is that customer service is a major strength for us. Patrons' perceptions of frontline customer service are overwhelmingly positive. We had 90% of our almost 1,600 responses report being somewhat or very satisfied with staff interactions. We had a district-wide recommendation score of 4.71 out of 5, which is very, very high in the customer service world. And 85% of these responders were promoters, their net promoter score, which means that they are highly likely to recommend Timberland to others. And like Mary Beth said, the comments, when I was doing the qualitative analysis of this, it was very difficult to put those comments into little boxes of, what were you experiencing at that time? And, so it was a difficult survey to kind of get perceptions, and we've learned some things. So hopefully, we'll figure out what questions went well and what questions didn't quite meet the mark that we were hoping for. But you live and you learn and you just try things. So the survey shows that frontline staff are one of Timberland's strongest assets and are central to community trust and participation, which we have now learned and used as the key to connection in our communities. What stood out on the report is that, of course, staff is the strongest themes across the survey. Patrons consistently describe staff in positive terms, with the most common descriptors being friendly, helpful, knowledgeable, welcoming, and kind. Comments repeatedly highlighted that staff remembered patrons' names and preferences, helped with technology, supported senior citizens, children, and other patrons with vulnerable populations, and they create a sense of belonging and safety within the library, and they take extra time to help assist people. So our team is doing really, really great work out there. In turning what we heard into what we're doing, these actions closely mirror what we saw in collecting the data, and we weren't surprised that our staff was doing a good job. We just wanted to kind of codify what it was that they were doing and how it was helping the public. So the next few pages, I'll show you how we're turning the feedback into actions. And so our actions are, sustaining and recognizing excellent service, building consistency around greeting and acknowledgement, because that was shown to be pretty important to patrons. And I think we found a way, we're going to try it out, to balance, those folks who come to the library who don't want to be, who kind of want to be by themselves versus those who really want greeting and community. So we've kind of found a balance that staff were kind of questioning or wondering about, is how do you greet someone who doesn't want to be greeted, things like that. So we found a good balance. This helps us to invest in training, coaching, and our staff development in the right ways. We don't need a full-on customer service, $1,000 course. We just need to improve little bits of things in some areas. And then we can use the survey to track trends over time, and that will help with our decision making. So we've got some data that hopefully we get to do another survey, and we'll keep building our data set around it. So we looked at the practices that we already had. We had a TRL standards of performance. It's just a kind of a list of what to do, and then you'll know you have good service. So we take that as our how, and with the help of staff and service center staff and frontline staff, we reworked the customer service values and updated them to our current why. Why are we here doing our customer service? Why is customer service important in libraries? And then added this year an element of in practice. So just kind of culminating in what actions do you take that solidify and embody good or excellent customer service, which is the missing piece that we, a lot of staff members were already doing it. It's just needed to be written down. What are you doing? How are you doing? And why does it work? So that was pretty fun to talk to staff and get that, get those items written down. So these all together make up our approach to customer service. And we came up with this CARE model, and it stands for Connect, Assist, Respect, and Empower. And that is gives us some action items that we can do that show excellent customer service each time. It helps us to upskill our teams. It helps staff and supervisors understand a fundamental expectation of customer service and how you can go, they can discuss potential actions that go towards being a good customer service person on the front line. An example of a connect action would be make sure you're greeting or acknowledging patrons when they're within a certain amount of feet of you. So really codifies it, but gives people some wiggle room in using their own judgment to provide good service. And just an example of an assist item would be that we go the extra mile. We offer options and resources. If it's not our library service, what can we offer beyond that? Can we offer a notary? Can we find a notary for you even if we don't provide that service? So codifying that we go the extra mile and what that actually looks like. Now is some insider information about tools that I created. We created in response to those interviews from the staff, the public survey results. I did a lot of research on customer service. There isn't a lot of customer service in libraries specifically. So I was like, well, maybe Timberland gets to write this book, But what we learned is I put it all together into a customer service hub. And you can see on the left some table of contents, some really cool, specific tools that staff can use to generate their own level of service, their own vibe of service that works for them as an individual, and not just prescribing a customer service model for the whole district, but gives some positive actions that they can talk out with their supervisor. So we created a helpful phrasing guide too that is, common phrases that are helpful in customer service situations. In case you've never been trained on customer service, this would open up some options for you to practice, what kind of phrasing works well for you, how do you engage. One thing that inspired me a while ago was I had one of my staff members come to me and said, Stephanie, I can't do customer service the way that you do it. You do it extroverted, loud and friendly. And this person thought that they couldn't do it that way. And I said, let's talk about how you can do it as you, and you can still be a wonderful, provide a good service for people maybe who don't want loud and exuberant, because some people, that's not doesn't work for them. So, we have diverse staff members who need diverse things, and individuals connect with different individuals across the board. So that really inspired me to say not a prescriptive model, but more intuitive, and that people could make up their own style together. So got that customer service hub going, and then here's a couple more just build outs of, you know, why is it important, and the Timberland way. Why is it important that we do it how we do it? One of the things I wanted to add into this was not just customer service for the public and how we do work with our frontline, work with our patrons, but also how we treat each other internally. So we wrote an internal guide that goes along with care. How do we connect with each other, respect each other, empower each other, and assist each other? I know I said that out of order, but so how do we do it together? And then on the bottom right are some wonderful quotes from the survey that I wanted to make sure staff heard, that they are amazing and their patrons love that. So yeah, the project began to be about writing down the customer service best practices all in one place, so that it's written in a way that gives us a common language for customer service at our libraries while allowing staff to use their own judgment and style. We created a shared understanding of what customer service looks like, and so that staff and supervisors can talk about it, practice it, and coach it more consistently. This was a roadmap that I created just to kind of get through 2026 and see where the project would go, how we should start it. And so much of March and January through March was spent building our customer service hub and reviewing the customer service survey results after they it took me, probably a good month and a half to review the results till we were comfortable with what we wanted to share out, or what it was saying. In April and May, another cool thing that we did in April and May, a team of staff members in our creative services department made special training videos for Timberland staff, because there aren't special training videos for specific situations in libraries. So we made them, and there are about 4 videos that we managed to do pretty good. We wrote scripts, we animated them, and I think they're available for staff training and pretty good library specific training. I'm pretty proud of those. And then as we are in August, we are about to roll out the annual customer service training to all staff. And coming up, we'll be deciding on another survey, whether that's possible in this. And then almost last slide. 2026 outcomes. You can see we've managed to meet many of the goals that we set up for ourselves this year. We set up a strong foundation for customer service actions in our libraries. I would love to do some recognition now. The surveys come out, discussions are being had, so I would love to see more recognition in some way. And then where we can go from here is we can sustain and strengthen and continue to measure. We can sustain what staff are already doing exceptionally well. We can strengthen our consistency, particularly in greetings and acknowledgements and other patron-centered practices. And we can continue gathering patron feedback and repeat the survey as needed to identify trends and services needed in our communities. And I will say thank you for listening, and if you have any questions for me.
Any questions or comments from trustees? I guess I'll kick it off to say I love this. This is great. It's really cool that you guys were able to sort of lead on this important issue. I feel like I've noticed a difference, a positive difference. And I really like the emphasis you have throughout here in a lot of different ways, that everyone in TRL, from the trustees down to service center staff and definitely frontline staff, we all work for the 550,000 people in our district. They are the customers, they are the boss, the ones who come in the library, the patrons. Yes, I love that you have that. We work for them, we help them. What's the phrase you have in there? I can assist you. I mean, that's a nice.
We're here to help you. I can. Yeah, that's what all of it should be about. Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Agreed. Well done. I think it's also worth calling out that these are pretty positive results, and the survey ran during a pretty difficult time. So, good to see that despite everything, as this is not a surprise, as you mentioned, but like, the customer service shined through, despite everything that was going on, that was, consuming us at this level. But the day-to-day experience, as we're seeing, was a positive one. And then the only other thing I would comment on, without pulling apart, there actually was one comment, and then it was like, I don't need my name loudly announced when I walk in the library. So so when you mentioned that, it made me chuckle a bit. But I understand the like use of stoplight color coding, but like if you look at the scores for the libraries, even the ones that are labeled as red are, I understand it's kind of like the spread, like they're on like it's kind of a grading on a curve, if you will. But I think the ones labeled red are like 4.24 or something like that. To me, it's like green, green, and greener, or green, greener, and greenest. So just something that like might be worth, depending on how that gets presented and used, just updating so it's not like the red branches are not like a don't go here. It's like a it's
Yes, I see what you're saying. Color coding so that they don't see themselves as a negative, because they aren't really. They're, I think I can't remember the statistics. It's been 3 months, but they're still in a very positive state. I think there were 11 total comments that maybe even had to do with staff specifically, and we know that those are anomalies, or we can say that they might be anomalies. Everybody's had a rough day in the service world, so we were taking that into consideration. But yeah, I see what you're saying as far as like presenting it in a way, green, green, and greener. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Any other comments?
So I think I get to be the next comment question. So Stephanie, what's the plan to release this to the public? Will this be like one of the podcast topics, or will we see this on social media?
Yeah, as far as where it goes from here, I can tell you what we've done so far, but and as far as where it goes from here, that would be up to Andrea, and she can tell me and help me figure out where she wants to go with it. We have released
nice pass, by the way.
She gets all of it, doesn't she? And does a great job with it. We have put the survey out in a news post as of May when it was ready. I'm happy to talk about it. This is what my second favorite topic besides the Aberdeen Library and the remodel. So I'm happy to talk about it on a podcast or wherever else it goes. I do think that staff should be recognized for all of their good work and efforts out there. So yeah, I'm not sure. I am onto a new horizon or a new role, with the West Grace Harbor folks. So, but I'm happy to participate in customer service conversations for the district anytime.
There was a comment about the podcast, wanting more podcasts.
Yes, that was the first one.
That was the first comment I read. Yeah.
I hope Chris
Not submitted by Chris.
Yeah. Definitively say it was Chris.
No, that definitely didn't happen. I'm not making more work for myself.
I was going to say, I do definitely see a blog post and a newsletter post that we could share out through our TRL newsletters talking about how amazing our staff did. This is the first time we've ever done a customer service survey, as far as I know, for Timberland. And, you just never know what exactly you're going to learn. And I was happily surprised. It was amazing.
Great.
And those that have negative comments, there's some aspects that we're always going to have challenging situations that we have to deal with, and there's not much we can do about it. And so I didn't see a lot of comments that I thought, oh wow, we need to do a huge, like you said, a huge training on this or something like that. Just little touches.
Little touches, exactly. You know, as Dustin alluded, it was an interesting time to put out a survey, and of course, news happened right in the middle of the survey. So, you know, as we normalize and hopefully stabilize in the next few years, if we keep putting out the survey, you know, different or interesting results, I think we'll still have great staff and great service. But it would be lovely to hear. I always want to hear the other side of things too. You know, what can we improve on? So. This was a interesting year and maybe an anomaly year, but I still think our staff are doing a great job.
I didn't actually feel that the positive responses to our staff were necessarily an anomaly. I mean, we had this situation going on, and we know that there was a lot of community support for our staff, which was great. But I didn't see that reflected in at least in the comments, like they were overwhelming, over the top, you know, pay them more, or what, you know, some things that normally you would have seen.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed very honest, I guess, is my assessment.
That is true. There wasn't an outsized, you know, specific comments about like, at that time, layoffs or whatnot. It was genuine appreciation for what the staff provide in the libraries every day. And I really appreciated the people that said that and gave us all the other feedback, like more this or more that, or we love what you're doing, keep it up, that kind of thing. Those were great. I hope that staff have read them, because there are specific folks named, and that's great. And I've talked to their supervisors to say, make sure you give this feedback to them so that they can feel a little bit happy and appreciated. Yeah. Thank you for that, Mary Beth.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Stephanie, for the presentation and for leading in this. Very cool.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Next item 10B, librarians and library workers Bill of Rights. Mary Beth, I think you brought this forward. Do you want to introduce this discussion?
I do, and it comes really at a good time since we just finished talking about customer service and our great staff and everything. So the American Library Association has always had a library Bill of Rights. If you look at our illustrious leader, Andrea, she has a poster behind her that actually talks about the library Bill of Rights. And so we've always signed off on that. But this is something that the American Library Association just put out. As far as I'm aware of, it's new, that they just put out, and it's called the Librarians or the Library Workers Bill of Rights. I'm sure all of you got a chance to look at this. It was in our packet. I don't think there's a huge amount of discussion that needs to be had about that. I'm just suggesting that we as a board, you know, I guess make a motion that we agree with this and we abide by this and we will follow it.
Okay. Any discussion on that? I guess I would kick it off and say there's a lot of great language in there. And I think that all workers at TRL in every job, public and private, paid or volunteer, deserve respect. The foundation of that is part of basic human decency, support in state and federal workplace laws and TRL policies that already prevent what this document guards against, which is harassment, bullying, discrimination, threats to personal safety. So I think we're already doing that. And looking beyond that, I see this document, it's a great aspirational document, but it creates, I think, a number of potential problems to just sort of think about. It contains wide-ranging terms that are undefined, which I worry would create a potential cause of action and legal liability. When we formally endorsed a document that makes sweeping promises and pledges, phrases like employees, quote, shall not be censored, silenced, or punished, potentially create a number of problems in operating a library or any workplace. And then I guess I would wear on a purely financial basis saying all library workers deserve fair pay, which I think everyone deserves fair pay, but that potentially creates major obligations depending on how fair is interpreted. And we as trustees don't get to define what it means maybe in a year or two when the CBA agreement comes up and, hey, your document calls for this or that. So I guess I'd be wary about special rights for certain groups. And I just say we already have a Bill of Rights that protects every American, and we don't need a special sub Bill of Rights.
You think it's important to show our support for the library workers at this time?
I absolutely support them, and I support every worker, and we have robust workplace protection laws in Washington state and federally. And we have a Bill of Rights that protects freedom of speech and expression for everybody. So I think absolutely support our employees, but I don't know that we need to create a special list of things that potentially signs us up for a lot of things that we don't necessarily understand that we might be agreeing to when we're talking about workplace law obligations, promises for pay and treatment.
Okay. Anybody else? No.
Yeah, if we're going to move forward on something like this, it really ought to come through policy. I don't see us. I don't see me making a vote on this. I mean, my vote right now would be no. First of all, it's not. I don't think it's even been seconded, so that's not important. And I don't know how. I don't see how this improves on what we're already doing. I think that we take care of our staff. I think that we respect our staff. And I, hopefully we uplift as we move forward on everything. So I don't see how this improves on anything that we're on what we're already doing. So, and I think as far as proper procedure, this should ought to come through policy.
And I'm sorry about that. I wasn't thinking about that. I just sent it because I didn't think it was that questionable. I just thought that I saw it and I thought, given everything that we have been through this year and that the staff that I have talked to do not feel supported in some cases by the board, I was thinking that this might be a gesture to show that we supported them. But that's fine. We can put it through policy, or we can just table it and forget about it.
I have no problem with it coming through policy. It's fair to talk about.
Yeah, I think we should be talking about it. I appreciate you bringing this forward, Mary Beth. I think let's put it on the next policy committee agenda. I see. I'm also unclear on what because Brian, I hear part of your concern is, and it may not be the entirety of it, but part of your concern is the creating additional avenues of policy that are above and beyond or just create obligations as you put it. And I guess Mary Beth, you indicated it being an important gesture to communicate to staff how much we do appreciate and care and take steps to recognize that. I'm curious, when libraries adopt this, what it creates in the terms of actual legal obligations, right? So if we're using right to fair compensation, let's just say hypothetical where at some point in the future during CBAs, we do have to limit it to we can't keep up with the rate of inflation for some reason, right? Or the cost of living adjustments. What kind of obligation does this create if we move it forward? I think that's an important thing to call out, because I just to be clear, I wholeheartedly support everything that is in this. and definitely appreciate and will continue to be a champion for our staff and supporting them in the work that they do and trusting them to do that work. But it is a valid question to ask what obligations this creates and understand, and especially if it is creating those obligations, I do think it's the right thing to run it through one of the policies and have more of a discussion about it. But I don't know if you have an answer, if anyone has an answer to what, like when library boards are adopting this, presumably some have already. How are they viewing this in terms of creating obligations as opposed to just saying like this is an aspirational standard that we are endorsing for our library system and recognizing that we're striving toward this?
Well, in the additional documents, I think it talked to it being a guiding document to affirm the dignity and rights and professional responsibilities for people who work in libraries. But and it does call for fair treatment. In terms of equitable pay, I don't think it's necessarily that we have to pay the same amount as Seattle or something. I think it's equitable pay within our own system so that people are not paid more because they're a certain gender or a certain age or something like that. That's how I saw it. But you know, let's have it. I think Hal is right. You're right. You know, put it through policy. I just saw this and I sent it to Chris, and I didn't think about putting it through the policy committee, but that's exactly where these things should go. So let's send it through there and y'all can discuss it and see. And again, reading I mean, trust me, anything that comes out of ALA has gone through so many lawyers and so many, and I haven't asked that question, but I could ask some of my friends about it. You know, how it works, but it's gone through a lot of committees on ALA. So anyway, that's fine.
Great, thank you very much. That sounds good. So we'll get that on the policy agenda. Okay, that brings us to 11, remaining 2026 schedule. Is that a Chris?
It is.
Sweet.
So I sent you a summary of the remaining board schedule for the rest of this year. Most of these are not anything that you would change. You'll see the regular facilities and policy committees and the board meetings on here. But the couple that I wanted to call your attention to are just to confirm that we are still good on the board retreat in Elma on Saturday the 12th, 10 to 4, and then October 24th at the Service Center for the work session. I think Mary Beth had a question about attending the work session in October virtually, and I said that was fine, but I put this on the agenda to confirm those dates still work for everyone. And also the budget committees. For those of you not on the budget committee, which is most of you, this had been brought up that through the end of 2026, the board wanted to make all the budget committee meetings special meetings of the full board rather than just the budget committee. So because you may not have been planning to go to those yourself when they were initially scheduled, also wanted to call your attention to those dates. That would be September 9th, so coming up pretty quick. And then again in November on the 12th. And that is adjacent to Veterans Day, if that matters to anyone.
I still like having the budget meetings of everyone, but I can understand if folks don't feel that way. I also wonder if our new budget director, if 8 days is going to be enough for her to be ready to come in hot on that meeting. I guess probably better.
I think we should give her the courtesy of asking her that question. I'd like to pass that off to Andrea and say, check with her and see if she's comfortable with that, because I see a really creative person coming on who may have may want to give some things some thought to some places where our funding travels. And with onboarding, she may not have the time to really study what we're looking at. And I don't want to give her extra night work. I don't want to give anyone extra night work.
Fair enough. I think that's good. having this meeting, should we still plan on doing this on September 9th?
I
That's,
think that's what Tony was saying, to defer.
yeah. And my question, since we're talking about that, is the next one is the board retreat. Do we have a theme or an agenda? Not a full agenda, but for the September 12th board retreat, because I'm looking at, we're going to be already on the road a lot. And I don't know what we're talking about then at the board retreat.
So I will say that date has become two things, some unavoidable, one avoidable. I failed to check the calendar. I checked my personal calendar. I did not check local event calendars. So that happens to be Loggers Play Day, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
And there will be a library presence there. And also just like personally, it's also just like has become terrible timing with don't have to schedule around one trustee, of course, but I did just want to throw out a consideration for whether we could look at other times, maybe shorten one, since we have a lot going on. I do think, to answer your question, Mary Beth, one thing we need to talk about as a board are the bylaws, and have the discussion around there have been a couple of different angles that we've been punting off from the policy committee for a full board discussion at a workshop, which are around friends, former staff, non-voting union member, et cetera. I think those are discussions to have at a workshop around the bylaws. It doesn't have to happen September 12th or at the next one, but that should be on the agenda of one that we have in the near future.
I agree. We need to have those discussions at the board retreat, but I would like to wait till we have a full board. I mean, not that we need that I just think it would be really good to have a full board for those discussions.
I agree.
I think as we're hiring board members, maybe now's the time to have the discussion so that there's more of an opportunity for folks to serve who currently are precluded by.
Wait, did you just say hiring? Who's paying you, Brian?
I'm compensated in so many ways of satisfaction, and yeah, as we're choosing, and maybe
go on. Sorry.
Maybe that's already progressed enough that it wouldn't matter, but right now we're limited in who can serve as trustees in ways that I think some of us would be open to changing. And if we do that soon, maybe that opens up more trustee possibilities for those unfilled positions.
I think the soonest that we could, if we moved very quickly in amending our bylaws, we'd be doing it at the end of September. And I think Mason County interviewed candidates yesterday. Not yesterday, Monday, sorry. And sounds like Thurston County has already selected theirs and sent it around. So I think there's more benefit to getting since it seems like that's already progressing and this wouldn't impact that process, it'd be better to defer until we have a full board.
I can live with that.
In my opinion.
So I'll throw this out there. I don't love the idea, but if the 12th Saturday is not a great date, and if we don't have a budget committee meeting on the 9th, we could have some of those discussions on the evening of Wednesday the 9th, but I don't love that idea. Oh, good. Not seeing a lot of love for that, which is fine. So should we cancel?
I'm also not available that night, so.
Okay. Should we cancel the budget committee and the board retreat? I mean, there's a million things we could discuss, but there's also a million ways we do outreach over the next month and a half too.
We've been really flexible. I'd really like to wait and ask Mariah, our new finance person, if she wants to move it back and not just assume that she wants to, because she may be an overachiever and studying up while we're not looking.
I mean, thank you. You said that twice and I finally get it. Not saying absolutely, not saying absolutely must not have it. That I support that.
So I will check with Mariah when she starts September 1st. And I will just also add a few things on my agenda for the board retreats that I think we have as agenda items for our future is reviewing our facilities plan. So the special projects, or I'm sorry, the operations project coordinator is working on updating that plan just so we have the most up-to-date information on each building. That's for planning purposes in terms of budget, like what are we going to need to look at replacing and how soon do we think that's going to happen? And that is something the board tasked our former operations director with getting done. So we're getting all that up to speed for planning purposes. I do also think we need to consider how do we talk about longer term, what happens if the levy does not pass? We need to have those conversations too, and how we might make decisions regarding staffing and buildings and all those things.
That's important, and having that around the date of September 12th would be the right point in time for that discussion.
We will probably not have that facilities plan totally updated because I know Aaron and Matthew Sneed are trying to get around all those buildings to get all that updated information, but it'll be whatever we have, we could present at that time unless we wait and do it. We have that October retreat, which is later in October, or if we reschedule something, so.
Yeah, I mean, we have the October date already, just a month later. To me, a lot of this could be talked about then. And we'll be closer to I think we'll have a kind of a feel. We won't know, but we'll have a feel of how things are going. And that also gives us, I think, enough time to make some emergency decisions if we need to.
It gives us a lot more time to just, internally give you, gather information you're going to need as we have conversations.
Okay, so it sounds like we're leaning toward not having the board retreat on September 12th. Is that what I'm hearing? I'm okay with that. It doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have, I mean, when I first came on board, we only had, and Hal would remember this too, we had 2 of these meetings a year. And I'm not saying it isn't good, it's beneficial, but I don't want to have a meeting just because we set it on the calendar.
Enough. Yeah, and retreats and work sessions to me are sort of the same commitment of time and attention. So yeah, if we want to do the October 24th and focus on that, that would be fine with me.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Just to confirm my understanding on the September 9th, so we'll leave that tentatively on the calendar for now, and Andrea will talk to Mariah on the 1st when she's hired and get a sense of whether we should keep that meeting. And again, that would be a full meeting, a full special meeting of the board. So just in the event that seems like too tight of a turnaround, or that we might want to change that date, I anticipate that you would want to try and reschedule that and not wait until the budget committee meeting that's scheduled for November 12th. So if each of you could let me know any dates after the 9th that definitely aren't going to work for you, assuming a 4:30 start time like this, just so I kind of have that in my back pocket if we do need to do any rescheduling. I would assume you'd probably want to, I mean, let's see, if you didn't do the 9th, most likely you'd be looking at rescheduling end of September, early October. So just, if you have a second, it'd be helpful to kind of know what's definitely not going to work for you, if you have some dates you'd like to look at, just so I have that in advance. Otherwise, we'll just kind of presume we're going forward with the 9th until I hear otherwise and pass that along.
Great. Okay. Anything else on this board calendar that folks want to discuss? I'll say that in my heart, I would like the board meetings on the 28th and November 18th to be in person at a branch. But 4 hours into our meeting tonight, I have a harder time advocating with my heart and soul to add in-person meetings. But I still, as we move into 2027, I'd love to see most or all of our meetings be in person, but I'm not proposing changing any of these dates right now. So this looks great.
If it helps you at all, I am already working on the calendar for next year, and I have, I think April through October, I want to say roughly there, I'll have identified at branches with like 2 per county roughly throughout the year. So
in the past, the winter meetings were, when they're in person, they were in the service center.
right.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Okay, great. That brings us to number 12, future agenda items. A couple of those have come up organically today. Anything else that people have? All righty, if you do, just send them in. Final board comments. Okay, we're nearing the end. Anyone want to wrap us up? I'll say 4 hours. Thank you for everybody who stayed, the trustees and the members of the public and the staff. Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right. Okay, so we have on the agenda an executive session that would be a review of Andrea. This is something we had on the agenda last month and we postponed because the agenda went long. It again went long. I think it's important to give feedback to our interim. She's doing a great job, and having a short executive session could be a great time to do that, but I'm open to postponing this one more time. Anyone have a preference on that? 15 minutes to give some feedback to her in exec, or should we call it a night?
Well, have we given her a job description?
We haven't done much of any kind of.
So it's really hard to go evaluate you if you don't give a job description. Just saying. I mean,
Well,
there was Cheryl's, but I mean, we haven't looked at things how we want to change that.
I mean, what we posted for when we did the selection
we did have
process.
that job description. That's right. When we did the interviews. I don't know. I haven't looked at the job description recently. I'm sorry.
I mean, I agree. I think Andrea's doing a good job. I've seen that reflected in the public meetings. Not to like start this session outside of the session, but like also, I feel like lately, especially like I've been connecting and talking with Andrea, like, or seeing Andrea like twice a week. So I'm happy to jump in for 15 minutes. I would also not mind getting to read a book to my little one before he falls asleep. So I'll say that and then leave it up to y'all.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
I guess I would just ask Andrea. What's your feel?
I mean, I don't want to rush you guys, that's for sure. If that's the right answer. It is part of the accountability plan. So I would just ask that you definitely do it before the next meeting, or do it at the next regular board meeting for sure. I think that's important.
Okay,
if we can put that in concrete, then I would say let's do that.
I'll ask for 90 more seconds of everyone's time. What would be a good way that we as a board could give feedback? Because Mary Beth's right, we don't have a big formal rubric of responses, but I do think giving some, maybe we all pulled together a couple things that we like that are happening under her leadership, and a couple things that we think could go from where they are to even better. Is that a good way to do that feedback? I like that kind of organic feedback, but if it needs to be more structured, we can do that.
I think a combination of that, and then what we either identified as priorities in the hiring process collectively, or like, we all had things that we communicated as well openly and in the process, right? That I think we should feel free to weigh in on as well. But the only thing really I think that we should use for like accountability purposes would be the things that we identified as priorities for the interim leadership. And, you know, we had the description, we had the things that we stated during the process and kind of aligned on. It is too late for me to rattle those off, but we,
Could someone
but-
send that document around? Does it exist in a place where anyone could put their hands on it? Well, we can research that.
let's ask Savannah to pull that together for us, because Savannah was pretty involved in that process.
Okay, sounds great. So we'll do that after the September meeting then. Okay, well, good job, everybody. Thank you to the public that stayed by. Pending anything else, I would open for a call to adjourn.
So moved.
Second that. Anyone in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
It's 9:07.
9:07 it is. Good night, everyone.
Thanks.